This is
I don't know.
Then it should be in there. Well, thanks. You're on YouTube. Oh, my. And then, hey, I'll start doing
You know you shouldn't be done with that. Hey, Bill. How are you?
How you doing?
Good to see you.
My daughter lives in the burbs of Minneapolis. The kids,
All I know is Saturday night I go to bed, it's raining, okay? It's great. I was on Saturday morning, I don't get it up. I looked out the window and I'm like, what is this? I think we got not almost as much as we did.
Yeah, we got 5. It's supposed to be $375.
Also,
It's about,
they've got
please
two
do
things
$300.
to vote on.
At one point, it's 25 degrees, barely.
Okay, how many acres you got?
23.
Okay, dude, go buy it or we can track it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, I've got my Kubota.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you gotta have, I got my Kubota with the grapples. Best thing in the world, grapples.
Yeah. Grab a tree and go, yeah.
Or you don't have, yeah, you don't have to. I had a little one, so I was bought in the way, right? And I got this. So I went ahead and got the grapples. It is, you gotta, no long, Laura.
Chickens.
Well, okay.
Wait,
you
no,
got
we're already live streaming to YouTube.
It's
So, yeah, before you cut the trees, cut it, pieces, put it on a trailer, move it, and we'll put some burn pile, right? Cut it up,
I guess it's not that heavy yet.
yeah, oh, it's a grapple. Oh, it is, yeah, and it's kind of fun to use, because it's fire station. I got that in the back,
Those firemen made out like
It's
that.
back.
Hi, are you-
Everybody in neighborhoods that had some,
How many acres do you have?
like something like that.
But I had to
I
put
think you're in the
we
wrong
had a
one, you
horse
should go to the one that
put
says
them
February
in.
18th at the end of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to use the back.
Put the horse down?
Dig great, baby.
Yeah.
Well, it might not have
That's
sent
pretty
it
much
out
what they do.
here, let me,
Dig a hole.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. So, it's gonna-
Don't you ever say that again. That's fighting words right there.
In there, but there's still.
Well, did you shoot some? Yeah.
My goal there. Sure, they'll never. Whatever was in there, they ain't going after them.
But how long would it take
if
the
you
body?
try to join it with,
Septic wouldn't do the bones
Oh,
though.
but you gotta get the.
Are you on your iPad?
Would that take care of the bones? Really?
Yeah, but dead body.
Okay. I'll
So
send you
the overhead,
that.
that's
Well, yeah, I gotta be able to.
25, maybe 25,000.
So you gotta get.
He wants to do that. It's in there.
Because of DNA.
Well, it starts on a company called Body Building.
Oh, no, you'll have to add it to it. You'll have to add it to it.
You put it down, hold it serious.
Or not.
Yeah, I've come across some bones before in Marion County.
Yeah, we can rate, we don't care if we wait.
Person.
It wasn't true.
Issue down here. Can't dig on it. It's limestone, right? It's fun. And then.
Yes.
It's. That's what issue.
You don't have any dynamite? Can you buy dynamite
Yes.
legally without a license?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Supposed to have a license.
I know that you won't remember the Speedway bomber, Brett Kimberlin, Speedway, Indiana, but he brought his dynamite. Brad,
Really?
somebody here, that's where you got
I
this.
just spelled it like you did.
Brown County, or the,
Well, he was called the Speedway Palmer, Brett Kimber.
what year was this?
Oh goodness, that had to be in the 80s maybe.
Really?
Yeah. Truck division. Smart character.
That was easy.
Did you guys call him?
Yes,
Convicted or was
yes. However, his mother was either his mother's a lawyer, his dad a doctor, or vice versa. Very smart man. And Brett owned the Gary. Health store in Speedway. He also was claimed to be Dan Will's project.
Really?
You were asking.
You're this committee. I'm sure.
He always claimed he was. Yeah, he moved to Marion County Jail out of matches. He was a barber. He did.
They blew stuff up.
Yeah.
Did he kill anybody? Blow stuff up?
Yes, that's Alex, that's why he went to jail. He made a package to it at a football game in Speedway, put a package in the parking lot, the guy kicked it and was laid off. And then 10 or 20 years later, the guy committed suicide. Yeah, that was my world.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
All right,
We're just waiting on Judy.
we're just waiting on Judy.
That's Judy, not Julie.
Judy.
Judy Swift? She's here? Oh, you're waiting on her to join the Zoom? No, is this Microsoft Teams now?
It's actually a new for the public. She's the only one joining via Teams.
Teams, yeah, it's Zoom up into Teams. Is that
Because it's
what-
free.
is that what YouTube or Zoom?
We're using YouTube also.
I think Zoom.
Zoom,
Yeah, because I got a subscription, so. I don't know.
We can start with that, Judy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
Meeting's in order.
Call to order, say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions to agenda, or changes. We have, what, 25 salary ordinance you want to add? Okay, and we're gonna also, we'll have to,
I
vote
don't
to
think
do
we can
this.
do the 24 salary ordinance, so we might as well do
Okay.
the 25.
And finance committee update while we're at it. Okay, take a motion to add those to the agenda. Second. Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Roll call, we're gonna do a roll call.
Roll call.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Yep.
Good. Minutes, approval of the minutes. Take any questions or comments on that? Take a motion to approve the minutes for the, I think it was the 16th of January, no, 21st of January, and the 6th of February. Someone. Second, anyone? This isn't that hard. Made and seconded, all in favor? Let's roll call.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Yeah, why not?
Who seconded that? I'm sorry. Patrick. Patrick, okay.
Okay, you got that?
Got it.
The next item is the old business board appointments. Let's start with Judy Wright Simpson, because we skipped that one last time. Is Judy here?
No, she's in Florida.
I guess that's where Judy's are.
Yes, so. Okay. Any questions, discussion about Judy Wright Simpson being reappointed to Peterborough? All right, take a motion.
Motion to reappoint Judy Wright Simpson to the Peterborough Board.
Second.
Made and seconded, roll call?
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes. Okay, the next item is the RDC. We received another letter for the RDC. We got two appointments. There's Sue Lindborg, Matthew Nelson, and David Cookie. David Cookie submitted a letter in this past week. And two appointments. Sue, you're here. David, Matthew Nelson told me he couldn't be here because his father had an illness. He had to go out of state. Any discussion on that? Three people with two appointments. Sue's been on it for how long? 2 years? Okay. Any thoughts on that? One thought I have, and it's not personal, Sue, is that you're president of the, what? Habitat, right? Yeah. So you're already contributing to the county in one way, some ways. The more people we could get to contribute as volunteers, the better, is my take on it. I mean, even if you weren't on the RDC, you could still attend the meetings. So if we appointed Matthew and David, we'd get more people involved, which we could hopefully groom towards future leadership. And you know we need leadership up here. So, any thoughts on that for any of the council or anyone else?
So we do have 2 spots.
2 spots, 3 people. Any discussion?
You said David's here or Matthew's here?
David's here, Matthew's out of town because his father is sick.
Okay. David, you mind coming up for, if you would, Mr. President, just a quick question?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. You don't have to take your coat off. I'm just curious about your interest on the board. I mean, do you have, it sounds, I think if I recall correctly, you moved up from Texas and longtime business owner. Just curious about your position on economic development. I mean, I don't know, do you have large economic development projects planned around you? Do you have positions on those? If you do, just in general, what's your interest?
Just helping develop the county.
Turn your mic on.
I can talk pretty loud. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I worked as an engineer on, a lot of projects, but never, development. I have had other business interests where I've redeveloped, or I wouldn't call it redeveloped, it was restored, like a mobile home park that had in a bunch of houses, that type of stuff, but I'm just interested in trying to help out in the county. Participated on the sewer board and actually went to one of the meetings for that. Trying to give a little of my background help for that. So I don't know how much of a help I can be. I'm pretty open-minded and pretty analytical. So.
Any other questions, thoughts? And y'all had a letter from Matthew Nelson explaining his background.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Take a motion, anyone want to make a motion? Those 2 positions?
At this point, have we heard anything from Matthew besides the letter?
I talked to him on the phone. Seems interested and has an interesting background. I didn't see any big negatives stood out. Like I say, the issue of people wanting to be involved is encouraging. I'd like to nurture that.
He said, I really I really like being able to talk to people in person.
Yeah.
What's his major background?
It was some of it was in sales, he's, trying to think.
Yeah, sales. I mean, Darren, we could just hang tight till the next meeting, not that we want to grab, we could say, David, you don't have to come back, so you don't have to come back, but. Yeah,
Says
yeah,
it's
it's
on.
on. Just, we could, I mean, if, I agree, it'd be nice to meet him. I don't think he was at our last, I don't think he was at our last, and he's got a excused absence tonight, so.
Yeah, he's served on the Greensboro, Maryland Planning and Zoning Commission in 2019. He's strategic business development, project engineering and execution, pipeline growth, project management, life safety sales consultant. If you wanted to wait for the second position or one of the positions till next month, we can choose to do that and have him here, whatever.
Is it crucial to be filled right now? Do they have anything
No, I don't think so.
waiting?
We don't have any money to give him.
Yeah.
Gary, may I say something?
Sure, please do, Sue.
Some of you know me and some of you don't, but I do have a master's in public affairs from Indiana University. And yes, I am actively involved in Habitat because I'm retired and I have time to devote. The last 2 years on the RDC have been, the first year was somewhat productive, this last year was not. And I think a lot of that comes from our need to get direction from the council and the commissioners as to what exactly you want us to do. If you have a bunch of new members come in and look at what the statutes say, that all doesn't apply to Brown County. And I had cautioned them this last year that we need to talk to the people that are out there to see if they need RDC to help them with an EDA or whatever else they're looking to do.
Right.
We cannot dictate that to them. So if you want me to be on it, I'm retired, I have the time. But somebody needs to convene it, and we need to have some directive from both the commissioners and the council as to what exactly you want done and what you want us to focus on.
I think you're exactly right about that.
So,
And go ahead. Part of it is getting the comprehensive plan together that gives us some vision as to what to do.
absolutely.
And I encourage the RDC in the past year to work with that, because that's more of the overall package, and the RDC would be implementing pieces of it to make it functional. So that's close as we can get right now to telling you what to do. So that's in play, being developed.
Well, and it's important to have some structure in that group so you know where you're going forward instead of just making it up as you go along.
I agree. We also have work to do, and hopefully we'll be in that position more so as the year goes on and towards next year, to be able to give you more direction and money even, which is critical. Go ahead.
Sue, question for you, Sue. Are you, so you're on there now, you've been on there for 2 years, you said?
Yes.
Are you, I've had a chance to take a look at the conference plan draft, and it says we need an economic development strategy. What are your thoughts on that?
Most definitely, and ideally, if you had money, it'd be instrumental to have an economic development person. When you have a group of volunteers, you're going to get 6 different opinions of what needs to happen. And we need something as a hub to be able to come to and say, here's the comprehensive plan, here's what we can do to help, otherwise it's just chaotic meetings that really have no direction.
Yeah, the other thing that's in play is a regional economic development group that would be Owen, Monroe, and Brown, and that group combined would develop an economic development strategy for each county individually fitting within kind of a regional
Sure.
need, which is housing, outdoor recreation, quality of life, et cetera, but each county would have its own individual economic development strategy with probably some pretty intense demographic research and statistics and all the data you could handle. What do you think about that approach?
Absolutely. I mean, everything is becoming regionalized, and in that there's some efficiency. And if you have strong representation, you can have it tailored to the needs of the county. Even Habitat is looking to expand. We can't do it all here. And we're looking, to Jackson and Bartholomew. You can't live in isolation. And Brown County is certainly accepts and welcomes all kinds of people from the area. So as far as a regional plan, why not?
Yeah, I agree that it would be more efficient to do that. We'd probably get a more comprehensive product out of it for less. I saw that Habitat has a really great project in queue for 22 homes in Southern Brown. I believe that's before the commissioners right now.
We had,
I'm sorry.
but we did, but financing is an issue because a lot of our money comes from federal monies, and the bank was hesitant to underwrite that given the uncertainty of federal grants right now. So that's not going to happen. Unfortunately.
Is that written off or is it on hold?
It's off. But we're still looking for land if anybody has it.
Okay,
Because we'd like to build multiple homes in an area, mixed income homes, duplexes possibly. Think outside the box so we can maximize the use of the land and be more efficient in building.
my understanding was you're gonna build on 3-acre lots there with septic, is that what your plan was?
That was.
Like, yeah, acreage?
Is there any chance of reviving that plan?
Yes, always.
Private donations or, yeah.
Have you secured the land and you're just waiting for
No,
approval?
we needed financing to get the land, and our grants are key for us to be able to do that. So, but, if we can find maybe 10 acres and build 3-4 homes, that would just be more efficient than trying to build one home at a time.
I know a couple of your homes over, oh gosh, what's the Orchard Hill? Is that Orchard Hill or what's the, not Orchard Hill, I always forget the name of that. So you built a couple homes, 2 or 3 homes.
Yeah, that was years ago.
Yeah, what road is that again?
The tree.
Treetop?
Treetop maybe, or, yeah, whatever it is. Those are on sewer, right? And so I'm thinking like your position on sewer. And you could put your Habitat hat on if you want. I mean, if you didn't have to build 22 septics versus being on sewer,
Yeah.
would that help you for affordable housing?
Oh, of course. And it's kind of a wash because what we experienced in hooking up the house on Treetops was, it was like $15,000 to get that hooked up to city utility. So, if you can put a septic in for that and help people learn how to take care of them, then that would be an alternate. But yes, if we had the infrastructure, we could build lots.
Do you have a position on sewers? Do you think we should expand, not expand? How would you interact with that on the RDC?
I think, given our county and how it is, I'm not one way or another. If you can get city utilities, that's super, that's first. Yeah, I've lived on both.
Okay, we're going a little off topic here.
Yeah.
So we need to decide which way we're gonna go on the boards. We can defer till, it's appoint one position one today and defer till next week, or defer both positions till next week, next month.
Just a thought, I think David would be a good addition to it. I like the continuity of keeping Sue on there.
Okay, fair.
I agree, Darren. I think, I like the continuity. I like David's background, but you are, David, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you just moved here, if I'm right.
This summer, yes.
So you're very new to the community, moved from out of state. Have you been here in the past, or is this a new?
Never came here before,
Okay.
but we felt right at home and bought a house the first trip we came.
Yeah, well, glad to have you, welcome you. I do think that's probably, Darren, a little bit of a hang up for me, and we haven't had a chance to talk to Matthew. I mean, I'd be comfortable with Sue tonight, based on what she's saying, and maybe we give just Matt a chance. I think he's been here longer, no offense, David. It's just really new, right? And so we do want to get you involved, I think, but I don't know, Darren, what do you think about giving Matthew a chance just to hear from him? He's got an excused absence today.
I think since we're not in a rush to appoint that, we could probably wait, sorry, David, till next time and see where we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
We
you
got
got
hands
good
up back
skills.
there, is it pertinent to this? Go ahead.
Jeremiah Reichman, I'm a new appointee to the RDC by the commissioners.
Okay.
I just wanted to bring up the point that experience for an entirely new panel, new board, would be tremendously valuable. So Sue would be a great asset in that aspect, because tonight was supposed to be the first RDC meeting at 6 o'clock, but we weren't able to do that because we wanted to wait for your appointees. We're losing a little bit of valuable time this year to get our feet underneath us and to understand what the requirements are for that panel. It might be helpful to have someone that has been in there with a little bit of experience to help guide us a little bit on those.
Is Sue the only one on there currently that has been there
There's,
before?
on the website, there's Stephanie Kreitzer. I don't know if she's still on there or not, or if that hasn't been updated yet or not. I haven't heard from her at all.
Why is it so important that someone lived here 5, 10, 15 years, as long as they have the qualifications?
I mean, I like the qualifications, David, definitely do. I just think, gosh, getting your feet on the ground, kind of meeting some neighbors, just, I just think and Brown County's pretty particular about how things have been for a long time, right? And so, if we had no kind of constraints like that, we were a different community and we just want to forge ahead, that would be one thing in my mind, just me. But I do think that's kind of a tough spot to put him in, and may have a little bit longer
It's
runway.
like Gary said, he's trying to institute more people to get involved, but I've noticed in my short tenure here, we tend to dissuade that.
Yeah.
And not just with him, but I've noticed that with other things too.
Yeah.
So,
And I understand where you're coming from, Scott. Balance is also a good aspect to have an outside perspective. I don't know him or anything from Adam, but having an outside perspective along with someone that has tenure a little bit. And I think the others have a little bit of that balance, with myself being here, a native since I was growing up as a kid, and then the other two as somewhat semi-implants. So
You said a lot of kind of what I wanted to add, waiting my turn. I think an outside new voice is, we're not replacing the entire board with a bunch of new faces, new to the county. I think an outside voice is important, along with, the seasoned, longtime county residents. I think there's a good mix that can be had from that. I'm not dissuaded from him being new to the county. I think if we keep it stale, then we kind of get an echo chamber of really not going anywhere. I think a new voice would be
Fresh blood is helpful.
beneficial to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to David being appointed because he's new.
And again, I just wanted to point out, I have not seen any of their resumes or backgrounds or anything like that. It's solely just hearing the conversation and giving a little bit of perspective of a newcomer to the RDC. Thanks.
Any other thoughts on?
From his experience and
It doesn't matter.
Mr. President, can I ask a few words? First of all, I came on was asked to get involved in the RDC in 2017. I was the president of the RDC in 2018, and I was the president of the RDC in 2019. Ted Clark, you were the first person I met when I got actively involved because you were on the RDC at that time, as well as Keith Baker was actively involved in the RDC, and Dave Redding was actively involved in the RDC. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would it make sense if you and I, and we reach out to Redding, reach out to Baker, and the four of us put our heads together and try to define the purpose and the why of the RDC in Brown County? What's your thoughts on that? Just, is that a good thing or a bad thing, or?
Doesn't hurt, Jim, that's fine.
Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Jim, I think, isn't it already defined, the purpose of the RDC?
We can talk about it off record, I don't want to discuss it now.
No, I mean, it's defined in state code what the RDC is.
The RDC, the Redevelopment Commission, makes a lot of sense for Lake County, Indiana. I don't know if you're familiar with Gary, Indiana. We're a large metropolitan area that has blocks and blocks of blighted real estate where they go in and bulldoze and redevelop. That makes a lot of sense. But the RDC, and based on the code that was written by Tom Pittman, and I've got a copy of it, I've read through it a number of times, it's not a real good fit for Brown County, because you got to go back to the original intent. The original intent was when the property, the sock factory property in Helmsburg was given to the county because she didn't want to pay the $42,000 a year in property tax on that building. And then the county fumbled around for about 5 years trying to figure out what they were going to do with it. And so what they did, is my understanding historically, is that we had an EDC, an Economic Development Commission, but they had to terminate the Economic Development Commission and they put in the Redevelopment Commission because it was the only entity that could legally sell the real estate that was given to the county. And that's how the RDC was formed in Brown County. And since that, we've been through a number of different people. It lacks any kind of direction, and I have empathy for those board members because the council nor the commissioner's office have ever sat down and really clearly defined what's the purpose of that RDC. Do we keep it or do we terminate it and perhaps go back to an EDC? Those are questions we probably ought to explore. And make some decisions.
Yeah, I think my understanding is an RDC is, something that is held in most counties across the state. It's a very kind of inside a box powers and responsibilities, TIF being one of the most powerful buying and holding properties as you mentioned, but it's not a replacement to an economic development corporation, commission, or body that oversees and carries out a strategic economic development plan for the county. It's meant for those specific state authorized purposes. And so I think, just hearing from what you're saying, I think it does make sense in this economic development strategy to revisit that in a broader context and say, hey, what is economic development for Brown County? What would be helpful? Because quite frankly, why the RDC has not been very productive, in my opinion, is they've had virtually zero projects to work with. Projects don't just create themselves. Kind of to Sue's thoughts earlier, you don't have someone focusing on economic development, projects don't come forward. And so, it's not a function of the fault of any of the RDC members, it's a function of nothing happening. And so, but it is a very specific set of powers, and so I don't think it'd be worthwhile to try to almost change state code to redefine that.
Bill's been on the RDC this past year.
I was in the RDC and.
Could you hit the microphone, Bill?
Yeah, sure. So the Tiltons came forward and asked for our support to put in an apartment building on the old Opry property.
You're referring to projects.
Yeah, Scott said there's no project, there wasn't.
That's one. Were there any others?
Well, I mean, when we met with the business leaders up in Bean Blossom, their crying need is for a sewer, right? They're pumping home and they're like, just give us a sewer. And those businesses are dependent upon that. And a TIF financing would be wonderful for those business leaders in Bean Blossom, and it would bring prosperity. So when we talked to Rex Boyles, he said, a gas station goes there and a hotel goes there on his property. And they were like, good for you. Good. I mean, that would be a nice benefit to Brown County. But there is projects. You just got to recognize it.
So what happened with those projects and the
They're
RDC?
still crying out for a sewer, right? We said, create a CDC, just like Helmsburg, and they're like, no, we really need a sewer. Right, and so the Tiltons are still working on it.
But in terms of the sewer, the project, what happened with the RDC?
Well, we created EDAs, right? One for the Tiltons and then one for the, what they call the Northern Corridor, the 45 corridor that goes across from Bloomington over to Bean Blossom. And it's like, and we've got folks in Helmsburg that would actually help expand their EDA and be able to manage it from the political side, from what the people want. But I'm saying there's projects.
Just unknown solutions, it sounds like.
Unknown funding.
Unknown funding, okay.
And I'll leave it at that, Gary.
All right, thank you, Bill.
My point is that my view at this point, I'm willing to reappoint Sue. And I would be willing to appoint David unless anybody else wants to wait until, talk to us.
Okay, you make a motion to that effect, we can then discuss further before we consider if we get a second.
Can we do one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, I move to reappoint Sue Lindbergh to the RDC.
Second.
Any discussion further?
Roll call.
Take a vote.
Darren,
Yes.
Judy,
I'm not gonna vote.
Scott,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Yes.
Patrick, Joel,
Yes.
Jim,
Sure. All right, take a motion, Mr. President.
Sure.
I move that we, all due respect to David, appreciate you being here. We just pause, give Matthew a chance to get back from his excused absence and have a chance to talk to him and then make a decision. If it's David, great. If it's Matthew, great. But just give him a chance to speak. That's my motion.
We'll wear David out coming to these meetings.
I know. And maybe we say you don't have to come back. We've heard from
Well, that'd be
you.
good if you could, because we may have other
Yeah.
questions as we go back
Yeah.
and forth on that. So, okay, that's the motion. Hold till next meeting? Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, take a second, anyone? Or another motion? Gotta go somewhere.
I make a motion, we vote on it.
Well, we have a motion.
Oh, yeah, we have a motion, yes. Is there a second first? There's no second, we'll entertain another motion. Go ahead.
I make a motion, we vote on the current subject service, the individual that gave us presentation. I think it's a coup.
Cookie, yes, David Cookie.
Mhm.
So you get motions made, any second on that?
I'll second.
Any motion made and seconded? Any further discussion? Roll call?
Darren,
Yes.
Judy, gonna vote?
I'm not gonna vote.
Scott,
Nay.
Gary,
Yes.
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Well, we solved that one.
Congratulations, David.
Yes.
You don't have to stick around for the whole meeting. Just, you know, there'll be plenty more to come.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, David's got to get to a class. What's the class?
Forestry management.
Nice, nice.
Okay.
Okay.
We've got through those. Now we've got the Recorder's Perpetuation Fund yearly ordinance. Mary's not here, is she?
No.
No.
There's
Okay. This is something we do yearly. An ordinance, do you have an ordinance number we can use for this?
We just got 2 seconds. 2025 002 018 000.
2025-002-018, what was the last four?
000.
Okay,
Fancy.
yeah. All right, this is an ordinance, Council Bill number 1, an ordinance approving the Brown County Recorder's request to use the named funds of the Brown County, Indiana to support office operating expenses for 2025. Whereas the purpose of this ordinance is to allow the Brown County Recorder to use all or a portion of the Brown County Recorder's perpetuation fund established under IC Code 36-2-7-2 during the calendar year of 2025. Whereas fund as used in this ordinance refers to the County Recorder's Perpetuation Fund established under Code IC 36-2-7-10. Now, be it ordained by the Council of Brown County, Section 1, the County Recorder of Brown County has submitted a sworn statement under IC 36-2-7-10.2 for the purpose of paying all or a portion of the office expenses from the Brown County Recorder's Perpetuation Fund. Section 2, the County Council of Brown County approves $95,000 to be used for the office expenses in the calendar year of 2025. Section 3, this ordinance is effective January 1, 2025. Any questions, comments?
That's an ordinance, so we're gonna need two readings on it?
Yes.
Okay, and we can suspend that if we have unanimous approval.
Correct. Any discussion? If not, we'll take a motion.
Take a motion to,
Motion to
what's the
what?
motion to accept first reading or approve first reading?
Approve on first reading.
Move to approve on first reading.
Second?
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim,
No.
Okay.
Did you call Judy?
No,
no.
Or you could just abstain, right? You just.
If she abstains, is that,
Is that a vote or no?
No.
prevented?
I don't think she can't vote on anything.
She doesn't have to vote, but we have a no vote.
I know, but if you didn't.
Oh, I
vote,
see.
Just a protocol, if we didn't have a no vote, where would we be?
And she abstains,
Yeah.
it does not count as a no vote.
Okay. But it's not unanimous.
Well, it actually is, right?
It is.
Unanimous.
That's
Yeah.
unanimous
It
for,
would be unanimous for those purposes.
Because she technically can't vote on this because of.
Carry on.
Yeah.
okay, so we have to wait till next time, read it again.
Yep.
Jim, come on.
No, let's not discuss it, we're going to the next time. Okay, the next item is a health trust fund ordinance that Susan, this has been in the works for a while. I'll read, do you want me to read it or do you want to read it?
Turn on my mic here. So, right, I was tasked with finding a way to terminate the trust fund, the health trust fund that you all have in place, right? It does not work for purposes of the treasurer. She did have to move that money around, right? It's not something that we're doing in practicality. And so we just need to move away from it. Under the terms of the trust, it is done. It can be terminated by the trustees. We had an original initial set of trustees that are no longer there. And so the council appoints successor trustees. And so I would suggest appointing 5 trustees for your health trust fund tonight. I would suggest, there's certain people that have knowledge about it, but I would also suggest appointing one of the commissioners and appointing one of the council members. So initial trustees in there, it does state that the president of the council is an initial trustee as well as the president of the commissioners. So I suggest Gary and Tim. But I also suggest your treasurer, Andy Bond, Julia Reeves, your auditor, and then Teresa Cobian, who deals with that health insurance money, right? So what you need to do then is, I said, appoint successor trustees so that trustees can carry out the terms of your trust agreement, which is then terminate the trust.
So we're forming the trustee.
Only to
Just
terminate
to-
the trust,
just to
and it's the
terminate.
only way that it can happen, yeah.
And this, to jog everybody's memory, this is the trust fund that has like $17.84.
That is correct.
Right,
We can't do anything with it.
In the account.
in the account, right,
Account, yes. But
yes.
it's really a non-functional defunct account that does
Right.
nothing and serves no
You
purpose.
still pay all of your health insurance through your particular fund, 4,700 fund.
Yes.
Right, it just doesn't go into this trust fund account because this really is not practical.
Are there any, I mean, I don't know why we created it, but are there any financial or procedural advantages to having that you can think of?
No.
That would be my suggestion, my answer too.
That's my answer too.
Right.
Just-
No, you can track it through your fund. So, no,
Okay.
I'm not sure why it was set up, but you don't follow it, so why would we keep it?
This
Right.
conversation's been going on since the beginning of 2023.
Yes,
Oh,
it has.
Was it before that?
For that.
Yeah, started.
Yeah, this is insane. So we need to appoint the trustees, close the stupid account, get rid of the trust and be over.
Yes.
Yes,
The only question I have is, there any current trustees, is this all gonna go down legally, any problem with that?
right, I mean, your current trustees would have, their terms would have expired,
So there's,
right, long ago.
there's no problem.
But it's supposed to be the auditor, treasurer,
That was the initial
President.
president, yes. So we're holding to the terms of who was kind of appointed as initial trustees in there in terms of the auditor, treasurer, council president, commissioners president, and then one other person from the council. But since Teresa's been so heavily involved, instead of another council member, I just suggest Teresa as a successor trustee.
Okay, so,
Go ahead, no, you go.
you go,
I was gonna make a motion unless you had something else to say.
beat me to it.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the recommended trustees to the
Health,
health
trust fund.
yes,
Trust
health
fund.
trust fund,
for the purpose of dissolving it.
yes.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call?
Darren,
Yes?
Scott,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes. It's over. We work fast.
So,
The trustees will hold one very short meeting where we will terminate the trust.
We don't know the meaning of short meetings.
You guys do not, I would agree with that.
Susan, I assume like public meeting, you gotta announce it, or how do you call it? Who's chair? Is
Good
Gary
point.
chair, or how do you?
Gary can be the chair, sure. Like,
Okay.
we're gonna call this thing. Like, that's a little too much thought put into it. Like, in all honesty, we're terminating this trust. You don't
Can we
do it.
do, well, we can't do it in this meeting because
Yeah.
those people aren't here,
So,
but, yeah.
but we'll get the meeting together. We will terminate it
You'll
according
give
to
us
the
the
terms of
legalities
the
on that and make
agreement.
it happen, okay?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then the balance of that trust fund,
yeah.
then,
It goes to pay the term, under the terms of the plan and for the benefit of the plan members. So it's not like it's going to go anyplace. She's probably gonna move it into the 4,700 fund, right?
okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is Mark Williams, voting centers.
Good evening. I want to discuss the issue of vote centers with you. I'm Mark Williams, the chairman of the Brown County Election Board. Many of the current polling places in Brown County are ADA inadequate and overly congested. But the Brown County Board of Education has adopted a 2026 school calendar providing that the school buildings will be closed on primary and general election days. And the election board thanks the Superintendent Emily Tracy and the school board for their cooperation and continued interest in the voting process. So the commissioners now have the opportunity to designate ADA compliant, safe and secure polling places. I go through that point to build a foundation for the second, and that's vote centers. Vote centers offer flexibility and convenience by allowing voters to cast a ballot on election day at any of the county vote center locations they may choose. Should we go to vote center voting, the law requires at least 2 vote centers in Brown County, 1 for each 10,000 registered voters. Using the 3 elementary schools, the high school, and the Church of the Lakes, an AD compliant location, we could cover the county. The process is first for me to obtain from the commissioners and the council resolutions of support as to the concept of vote centers. While vote centers might reduce overall expenses, there may well be additional costs such as the acquisition and maintenance of additional equipment and the need to safely and securely store all of that equipment. To be sure, there is no specific plan in place as to what voting equipment to be used, but I must tell you that at our January election board meeting, Mr. Kelly and I went on record in favor of not discontinuing hand-marked paper ballot cards in the event vote centers are adopted. Now, as you recall from my recent letter, the apparent pullout from Indiana of our electronic poll book vendor complicates this process. The county clerks, including Ms. Banks, met with the Secretary of State's office on February 7, 2025, and obtained the commitment of that office to investigate the pullout and the causes. There are 11 counties affected, and the Secretary of State promised to come back with a response to the clerks by this Friday. Whether VR Systems, our poll book vendor, will be required to perform is unknown at this point, but it is certain that in order to move to vote centers, the county must also utilize electronic poll books. That is required. I've asked Ms. Bank to explore with the Secretary of State's office whether the grant provided for voting equipment could be used for electronic poll books so long as the county goes to vote centers. The grant was provided to acquire additional voting machines provided the county moves to vote centers. I also need to tell you that if we go to vote centers, additional ballot printers would be required as they would be attached to the electronic poll books. VR Systems has indicated to Ms. Banks that they would repurchase the electronic poll books at a depreciated value, or they would facilitate a sale of the poll books in any event to a county in Illinois. Regardless of the poll book issue, in my opinion, reducing expenses is not a good reason to move to vote centers, although that may be the result. The only good reason to move to vote centers is to make the voting process marginally more convenient to the voters. But you must weigh whether that added convenience outweighs the inherent disruption and confusion that such a fundamental change will make, at least in the first few elections. If both you and the commissioners separately adopt resolutions in support of vote centers, the election board will appoint a study committee who will gauge public opinion and develop a vote center plan. This committee would be diverse. I believe that representation from the commissioners and the council or their designees should be members. I believe that the 2 central committee chairs should each appoint 1 representative, and that representatives of 2 civic organizations interested in good government should be appointed by the board. It would be the job of this group to develop by majority vote a preliminary vote center plan under Indiana Code 3-11-18.1-4, for it provides in detail the elements of such a plan. Any plan must specify the technology and the voting methods to be used. The statute is detailed down to requiring a sketch of the proposed layout of a proposed vote center. This preliminary plan would then be published, and the committee would hold a public meeting for comment. After the public's opinions are received, the committee will then reconvene and determine if any amendments to the plan are necessary as a result of public comment. There is then a final hearing to advise the public of the final plan, and this final plan is then submitted to the election board for an up or down unanimous vote. If the vote is in the affirmative, the plan will be submitted to the state election division, and we will move forward with vote centers. Now, if you like our voting equipment and voting methods and the idea of using the schools and Church of the Lakes as polling places, but you are not convinced that the dislocation of the vote center process is necessary, the commissioners could designate the 4 schools and the church as polling places, and the election board, by unanimous vote and under authority of law, could consolidate the location of Jackson 1 and 4 at Helmsburg School, consolidate Hamblin 1 and 2 at Spernica School, use the church as the polling place for the Lakes community, and consolidate Washington 1 and 3 to the high school, and finally use Van Buren School for Van Buren 1. We would use our current equipment and voting methods, plus we could, by authority of the previously mentioned statute, reduce the number of required precinct officials. The electronic poll books in such case could not be financed by the state, as the existing grant runs only to facilitate vote centers. I think one other thing to add is the issue with the electronic poll books is, as a practical matter, we need electronic poll books, for there are several efficiency statutes to run the election that can't be used if we don't have the electronic poll books. Because what the electronic poll books does for us is they record electronically once someone has voted. Whether they vote in early voting or on election day, that's recorded, so they can't vote twice. And so all of the efficiency means that we have allowed by statute, because of those electronic poll books, we couldn't use if we went back to paper poll books, because you wouldn't know whether somebody was coming potentially to vote twice or not. There's a presumption that you get with using electronic poll books. So I think the risk is that we don't finish the selection process for new poll books in the event VR system stays out of the picture in time to go through the process. But we'll know more from the Secretary of State, hopefully by the end of this week, and then we can go back to the commissioners for a plan. I know that the voting equipment that we have right now took about 6 months to get, using the process that we went through. With poll books, I think at most we'll only have a choice of two vendors. There are not many vendors coming to Indiana. So that's where it stands right now. Be glad to answer any questions that you have and keep you informed.
Should we, I mean, I don't know, we probably get lots of questions for both you and Rick. Rick, do you have anything you want to say? And I got a few questions.
No, I think,
Sure. You're, I mean, my
Marcus
question.
covered it. I think the only other thing that, you know, we've discussed a lot is we really need another place for early voting. That, the building is just not acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay, are you asking us, Claire, just to clarify, are you asking us for action or just presenting information?
No, I'm just presenting information right now.
Right.
In my judgment, it's given the problem with our poll books, it's premature to ask for any action by the council or by the commissioners. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have in this process.
You said Rick, and either can answer which location is problematic. Are you looking for a new location? Is it?
Well, we need a new location for early voting.
Oh, for early voting.
Okay. And we had in excess of 100 ballots cast during early voting that could not be counted because the poll clerks didn't both, or sometimes not at all, have their initials on the ballots. And I thought a lot about this. I think the good reason for it is that the confined space in that little building out at Eagle Park and the requirements of new statutes that require the voter to bring their marked ballot back with an envelope and then have the poll clerks watch the voter sign the envelope and then put the envelope in, or put the ballot in the envelope, seal the envelope, and only then can the poll clerks sign the envelope, and then the voter takes the ballot back and puts it in the ballot box. In that little space, all of that happens over the top of people who are standing in line and trying to get their ballots. There's no way to avoid that because there's not room to set up additional poll clerks to make it a linear process. So we need a room that we can use during the voting process, the early voting process, that we can spread out a little bit and create linear stations so that we can comply with the new laws in an efficient way.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Bond, nutrition funds.
Gary, can I say a few words on that?
Sure.
Tim Clark. Mark presented this to us, previous meeting for us on the resolution. They asked for resolution support. Our attorney advised against that. We more than support the option of looking at voting centers as part of the option and considering the different variations, but they just recommended we don't vote on a resolution for voting centers. They said wait till the decisions are made, then we make a final vote on that one. So just throwing that out. On the voting locations,
Tim, hey Tim, did they say why?
just that, yeah, it's premature.
Decisions made by who, the Secretary of State?
No. A resolution of support, it just wasn't, he didn't see it as appropriate. What we'll do is when the final decisions are made through the studies, we'll vote officially then. We'll vote on the final solution coming from those study groups, but not previous to that.
It sounds, was that legal advice from the council, your council?
It's legal
or
advice
just
from
procedural
Barnes and
advice?
Thornburg, yeah.
It sounds like they'd be voting on an ordinance to do something that does not have details laid out yet.
Well, it's just a kind of resolution so you don't waste your time, is my understanding. I mean, why go through all the motion convening a committee and doing a study if the council and the commissioners don't even support it? I mean, there's no, I mean, Susan, let's just go ahead and resolve that. I mean, if we've just passed a simple resolution that said the council supports the idea of allowing the election board to appoint a study committee and explore the idea of vote centers, I mean, any risk in that to the council? It seems pretty benign to me.
Number one, I haven't looked at the statute. I wrote down his citation so that I can look at that vote center plan. And in other counties, I don't recall off the top of my head that either council or commissioners passed a resolution in support of that. I mean, it was very driven by the clerk's office and the election board. Obviously, they're tasked with those responsibilities of running the election. And so I just don't recall that that's something that came up. I mean, I started on my notes because I want to make sure that I look at the statute. I mean, obviously you guys haven't asked me to prepare a resolution right now, so there's not one available for you tonight, but, I mean, like I said, I started on my notes and I wrote down his citation because
So we can come back to it.
it's necessary.
I think the statutes, and I encourage council to review the statutes. I think what kicks off the process is a general resolution by the council and the commissioners to support, or not to support voting vote centers. That's what kicks off this long process. And I think that you don't have authority to the election board doesn't have the authority to appoint the commission without those resolutions. And I think that's the way the process works.
You said the support would be in the form of an exploration committee?
Yeah, it's that you support in general the concept of vote centers. The Secretary of State's website confirms this process and provides proposed resolutions for both the council and the commissioners. Now, that's for the discretion of the council and the commissioners. But from my reading and of the statutes and my reading of what the Secretary of State's provided, that until both those resolutions are provided, the election board has no authority to move forward.
Thank you.
Susan, that's something you might want to talk with Mike on, because he's pretty specific on that and turn us down on the resolution.
Yeah.
We are more than supportive of the concept.
Yeah. Okay, I will reach out to him.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I've got a question for Susan Beavers.
Yes.
Okay. For clarification's sake, a resolution as opposed to an ordinance, I'm assuming an ordinance is legally binding,
Right.
whereas a resolution is not legally binding.
Right, so again, the difference is your ordinances are laws, your resolutions are essentially your policies, both of which can be a bit flexible. You'd have to repeal an ordinance, whereas a policy and a resolution, you simply pass a new policy.
Right, so in other words, you know, if legally binding means an agreement or document has legal weight and can be enforced by a court.
Yeah.
A resolution wouldn't fit that definition, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I just, one last question for Rick and Mark. I mean, and you're both, you're the R and the D on the election board, if I'm understanding right. And so you're kind of representing all the folks. I mean, is it helpful to the election board if the council supports in concept the idea of exploring a resolution to pursue vote centers or not? I mean, is that helpful to you? Is that kind of, I assume that's why you're here, right?
It's required.
I mean, it's not as required, but I think, I'm just asking, do you both think it's something we should do, I guess?
There is interest in vote centers in the county. And so the election board's position is if there is interest in going to vote centers by both the commissioners and the council, the election board will pursue that process diligently.
Wow, that was a really, you must be an attorney here. Thanks, Mark.
But I must say that once the council and the commissioners offer those resolutions, then the process is mechanical after that and ends with the election board. So if the committee goes through and does their work, holds 2 public hearings, comes back with a final ordinance, or not an ordinance, but a proposal, then on an up or down vote, like unanimous vote, if the election board says, yes, this is what we're going to do, then it's submitted to the Secretary of State's office, and that's what we do.
And I said that was the last question, but do you know off the top of your head how many counties in the state are doing vote centers versus current?
I think that there are 11 or maybe 11 counties in the state that do not do vote centers. But we have as part of the proposal that is put to the election board at the end, if there is a proposal, if the commission can get to one, they have to specify what the voting equipment's going to be. And so right now we don't have any poll books. So while if this would be going on in parallel, we got to go out and get some poll books. Otherwise, it couldn't be, it can't happen because you can't have vote centers without poll books, electronic poll books.
What's the drop dead date that you guys need to have this done by? Because clearly we got midterms coming up in 27. 26. Yeah. So I mean, what's the drop dead date that?
I think that you're looking at to sign a contract for electronic poll books and all the equipment. If you don't operate in parallel, we're probably looking at May, something like that, to have purchased that new equipment.
May of 25?
Yeah.
Wow, so you're
because I think it's going to take the better part of 6 months to get to the end of the vote center process, because you've got to get a group of people that have to start from scratch. You have to have 2 public hearings, and then we got to get it all done at the Secretary of State's office in time to be ready for the 26 primary. It's all front-end loaded, and there's some requirements. Perlita reminded me that there's some requirements to get the new poll books registered with election security, which they have some really, but their drop dead dates keep getting earlier and earlier. So we'd be under the gun to do it.
Yeah, because you're going to have to basically have, by the 3rd quarter of this year, the end of the 3rd quarter, have basically everything sewn up and so the council needs to act quickly if we're going to act.
If you're going to do it, yeah.
With the resolution.
But you could, you don't get the benefit of a voter being able to cast their ballot wherever they like, but you could still get the benefit using the schools and the Church of the Lakes and consolidating
Right.
the polling places down, all the precincts down. We'd have the ability to do that with the new poll books and then defer the vote centers to later.
Okay.
If you consolidate the precincts, do you,
You consolidate the polling places. You don't consolidate the precincts.
that was my question. So you
Yeah.
still, if you have, Washington 1, 2, and 3 in the same location, you still need all the poll workers for each of the precincts separate, correct?
Yeah, you have to have the precincts are separate, but you don't necessarily need all the poll workers. We can consolidate some of those down.
We did that years ago. Jackson 1 and 2 were in the same building.
So is it safe to say that I know it does seem like it's challenging for the poll workers to be accumulated, trained, get them to show up, you gotta have backups. Would this, or if I'm hearing you right, this would reduce the number of poll workers and judges and sheriffs and all of that?
I think that vote centers would on the margin reduce the number of poll workers, not materially, but they would on the margins. I think that if you had a consolidation of polling places, that would also reduce the number of poll workers to a lesser extent than the vote centers would. But I don't think either of them would that number be a material number.
I have a question, the voting centers, okay? Will the public be assigned a particular voting center? Can they go there? Because that was a nightmare, the last voting center. I mean, I worked at polls and people were coming to the wrong place and they had to send them away and.
Well, if that's the nice thing about vote centers is you can vote anywhere in the county. It's basically what happens is you take the vote centers are like early voting, only you don't have to have an envelope.
Yeah, because in the November 5th, 2024, we had, I think, 11 precincts.
Yep.
And if we consolidate, we could go to 5.
You still have 11 precincts.
Right, but it's consolidated in 5 voting centers.
Yeah.
Everyone's allowed to vote wherever they want to go.
Now, you'd have to go to your designated consolidated.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to propose this, Susan, and to the council, that would our next regular meeting in March be too late for us to have a resolution that we vote on?
It would not, but here's what the statute says. So the statute says that the election board has to present a plan, and then they have to accept public comments on the plan, and then 30 days after the hearing held under the subsection above, they hold a public hearing to consider the draft plan and the written comments. And then after consideration of the draft plan and the public comments, then they adopt an order approving the draft plan or approving an amended draft plan is what they do. So once they approve, once you have an order and an adopted plan, then you have a resolution by the county executive and the county fiscal body that gets sent.
So that's after all that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That says that the order and the adopted plan has to be filed with the election division and the Secretary of State, and going with that would be a resolution from the county council and a resolution from the county commissioners.
So you guys are a month or two off.
But the process that I think kicks off with the resolutions.
that's not what the statute says. It says that the county election board shall hold a public hearing to present a draft plan for administration of vote centers in the county.
Well, to get a draft plan, there's got what precedes that, right? It doesn't just fall from the sky.
It's their job.
The election board initiates it. And so would you guys, I mean, if there's any.
We'll come back in March.
Yeah.
Well, and let me, just for clarification's sake, and to put this in lay terms, the election board doesn't want to have to go through all the hoops and jump through all the hoops to do everything that you just read off, Susan, unless they know they have the support of the council and the commissioners. Is that essentially what you're after?
That's, yes. I will say that it takes the action of the unanimous vote of the election board, and I won't vote yes unless I know that the process is approved by the council and the commissioners.
Well, I'll speak for myself, and you have my approval, so I support the direction in your head, so.
I appreciate that.
But the process states you have to see what the public thinks.
Yes.
That gives us clout.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of cart and horse, right? And I don't know that the statute is very clear. I don't think it's inappropriate for you necessarily to pass a resolution supporting this. But I think without having a draft plan and identifying all the things that they have to identify, software, hardware, all of that, you don't know what you're investing in voting machines and electronic poll books until they have a plan put together. So it's hard to say, yes, we support this, knowing that you're going to have funds that have to go out the door.
Okay, how about this let me pitch this for a minute. March council meeting, put together a 1 or 2 page report that outlines what Susan just rattled off, okay? Because that's a proposal, because the proposal's in writing, speaks to all the specifics, so there's nothing left out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the election board that, right, this whole uncertainty of your poll books, right, is just a big hurdle for them, right? So understand that for the clerk and for the election board, that's a very big hurdle to have that vendor essentially pull out. That's what you said, right?
And I will tell you that if come March, if we don't have clear resolution on the poll books,
right,
then I think we're done anyway.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So they can probably bring something back. It probably won't be in March. Like to have all of that done in terms of here's our draft plan, here's what we think it's going to cost in terms of hardware, software. To get that done in 30 days is probably a big ask when they're so uncertain with their poll books and the vendor.
Yeah, but then if we don't get that done in March, I mean, the clock's ticking, you're running out of time.
Yeah, but I think that you know, if what you wind up with is for the, in worst case, is in the 2026 election cycle, is you could wind up with a new poll books, a set of consolidated polling places, which would all be ADA compliant, but not with vote centers. So you'd have to go to your designated polling place, and there'd be some savings on with respect to some poll workers and that sort of thing. You know, we don't even, at this stage of the game, you know, we know that that there's going to be a lot greater demand for electronic poll books, and so what the price and the availability of those are going to be, we don't know.
But again, Mark, if we don't do vote centers, the money the Secretary of State has for us would not be available.
Yeah.
For poll books. So we would have to purchase poll books. Previously, both the equipment, the scannable equipment and all that, and the poll books were financed through municipal asset management in Colorado. So that could be done again.
I believe what Jim was saying is if you could flesh that out, give us an idea of the plan and timetable, that would be very helpful.
The process, I think, right, Jim? You're talking about the process, not the plan, which is unavailable.
Well, I just, what,
I'll come up with something.
Yeah,
But I'm not optimistic that I'll be able to give you any comfort by the end of March.
just keep us apprised as to what's
Yeah.
going on.
I'll do that.
Yeah,
are you gonna head this up, Gary,
head it up.
with them?
Do I need to head it up with you?
Well, I mean, we need to be in communication with them, other than, prior to the March meeting, because the goal is to get the resolution in place, correct?
Well, I don't, to be honest with you, I think we'll be able to give you an update without any help.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, just give an update a week beforehand so we can review it.
Yeah, well, you got my support, so whatever we can help.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mark, is worst case back to manual paper poll books? The old days, so to speak?
Well, you could go back to manual paper poll books. That way you don't have to buy electronic poll books. It will make the election process arduous for the clerk's office and for all the poll workers. And we'll lose all of the efficiencies that are allowed us by statute. I don't know if there's any county in the state that still use them, but they may, that you could demand to go back to that.
Here's a problem with that though, is that almost half of our voters in Brown County voted early. All that has to be recorded on your paper poll book so that they can't vote again. And that's, you're looking at, several thousand people, off your election 2026 may not be as big as this last one, but still, that's a monumental. And you have late voters, they have to bring that to you in the morning when you're voting and make sure that those are taken off the poll book.
So you'll have to work, deputy clerks will have to work all night to bring the poll books up to date, because the early voting polls close at noon on the day before the election.
It would be a nightmare to try to go back to paper poll books, and I don't want to be the only county in the state.
It would be tough, and since you're dealing with voter registration and everything, I think that'll have to come through the clerk's office, so there'd have to be a lot of deputy clerks hired.
The electronic poll books allow instant, immediate update of, as soon as somebody registers to vote, it is consolidated at the clerk's office that they got their ballot and they voted.
That's right.
So they cannot go to another place. It's instant.
Yeah, and it goes to the clerk's office and goes right back to all the other polling places.
On that point, and I've told the president, this is my last question 5 times now, so I think he's going to gap me down after this one. But, I like the idea of using the schools because they're all connected with fiber, and I believe it's possibly dark fiber. It's not, and so there could be some security in that use of that school fiber network to aid. And I know there were some concerns about cybersecurity, which there always will be, never get around it, but that sounds like a pretty safe network for us to use.
Yeah, whether we could use it or not, the poll books are on
cellular,
on a secure network that is on a wireless network that goes back to the clerk's office, and then the clerk is connected to the Secretary of State's office by landlines.
It's its own dedicated Wi-Fi network.
That could be super secure too, actually.
Yeah,
It's a private network.
It's a secure network.
Okay, why don't you put that together and get it back with us in March? Appreciate that. Thank you. Andy's still here?
Yeah.
Try again, Andy.
I know I just came before you and asked for a full-time position, and I greatly appreciate that, but now my girl is going to quit. She's going back to school, so it's not anything bad. I'm proud of her for wanting to go back to school and further her education, but I have a position coming open. She is doing online classes right now, so fall will be when she has to be done. I have opened the position up to take applications now. I'm trying to be proactive in this matter. I would really like for whoever I hire to be trained by her on some things that she does in the office and she does well. So what I'm asking from you is to use the attrition fund for if I have an overlap of time that I don't have money in my budget for. Right now I have 15 hours in her budget line, and I plan on keeping track of that. And I will use everything that I have for the new person, but I'm asking, I maybe would need a week. I'm not asking for months. I'm not asking for anything crazy, maybe a week of wages for that person.
How much is that?
I don't know, I didn't do the math, but roughly they make $17.20 an hour, so
So that'd be.
it's not a lot of money.
It'd be,
About $650.
How much is it there?
About $650 plus.
So, yeah, under $1,000. Boy, that's a lot of money, I don't know.
I know, I'm not asking for a lot here.
Well, goes down to 149.
Okay.
So,
Okay, any questions?
So we need an answer. Do you need an answer? When do you need an answer?
I have 8 applicants at the moment.
She's not leaving till, she's not leaving till fall, you said?
She doesn't have to leave until fall, like fall is the last, I think she starts in-person classes in August.
Now?
Right now, she's currently looking for a new job as well. We've been very open with each other on this because she's going to school for the medical field, so she's looking for a job in that capacity that maybe could work with her schedule some. So we're trying to work together, but I do have spring collections coming very soon, so I'm trying to be proactive for myself as well as her. So I don't really want to train someone right in the middle of spring collections. So I don't want to lose Alexis. She's a great girl. I guess I shouldn't say her name, sorry. But anyway, we all know who she is, so I don't want to lose her. But any questions?
I've been talking a lot about innkeeper's tax, and I think you'd mentioned that in our last meeting. Is that a significant amount of work for the office?
Yes, that is what I want. That is one thing that I want her to train the new person to do. Alexis has hit the ground running with that. She's done really well. She's cleaned up a lot of things that were messed up from on our spreadsheet and cleaned things up. So she has a good understanding of it, so I want her to pass that along with her notes and explain things and to the next person.
And then, oh, sorry. Well, just a quick follow-up. So my understanding is the state collects like half of our innkeeper's tax and the county collects the other half roughly.
I can't say it's half. We do get a good amount from the state, but I have no records. They don't give me anything with it to say this is for X, Y, and Z tourist home. They don't break it down into tourist homes, amounts, nothing. It's a lump sum of money and there you go.
And then that just comes in and your administrative cost is depositing it in the bank account?
It comes straight into our account, and then we collect the ones that come into our office daily and deposit those into the account as well. So, and then we have to put all that into a spreadsheet and keep track of who's paying, who's not paying, and like, we used to create a naughty list. We can't do that anymore because we don't know who's paying.
Yeah, I've heard it's more efficient for the innkeepers to pay the state version of that tax versus ours is pretty antiquated of sorts. Is there any opportunity for greater efficiencies in that area?
I mean, well, yeah, it's way easier just to put in a lump sum of, you know, but But I will say, when you put in that we only get that once a month from the state. So they are earning the interest on that. So you'll be cutting yourself out of interest if you just have the state collect it.
I'm not saying just have them collected, I mean, it could be more efficient in our area, is the impression I get. We're not very, rather laborious.
I don't
We can do
think
it, but it's not as, you know, we make it not as laborious.
I don't think it's more efficient to do it from the state because we have no idea who is actually paying their innkeeper's tax that way.
No, I don't think he's saying have it all go through the state. Is there a way that we can optimize the way we're doing it here and make it more efficient in-house for what we do from our side?
No.
Correct? Is that
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't think
Thank
there
you.
is. I think we're running it as efficiently as we can at this moment.
Has anything been explored to see if there is something more efficient?
As in what?
I don't know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean-
I don't know.
It does sound like the state administrative approach would be cheaper and less administratively burdensome, if I'm hearing you right. Is that,
Cheaper,
well, I mean, you wouldn't have to
maybe
have
because
those
my
staff.
deputy wouldn't have to put things into a spreadsheet, but it would not be cheaper for the county because we are not going to earn as much interest on the innkeeper's money. Do you see what I'm saying?
Do we
Because
earn-
everything that, let's just say we run it once a week in our office, everything we've collected in that week, we deposit in. So we get that interest on that money. But if we are only getting our innkeeper's tax once a month from the state, then they're getting all the interest.
We lose out on
And
three,
you don't know
three,
who it's
two in
from.
1 week.
Yeah, and I don't know,
Like
Who is paying?
Airbnb and Verbo, they collect it now instead of the host paying the county directly.
Yeah.
And that's why it goes through the state now, as you know, too.
I mean, if we
I had one.
know who it is, I mean, is there anything we can do? I mean, why would we know who, does it matter if we know who it is?
yeah,
They're not
yeah,
paying innkeeper's
absolutely.
tax.
Because, I mean,
go after
you
them.
could have a rental and you could just tell us that you're paying through Airbnb, VRBO, and the state's sending it, but I have no way of knowing that.
There's no verification.
There's no
Do
verification
we ever
whatsoever.
verify
So
or?
before that, everything was paid to our office, and I had a way of tracking it, and we did track it, and we provided a list of naughties that weren't paying monthly, that would be 6 months, 8 months behind, and we could call, we could send letters, and we could, you know, say, we're going to audit you, not the treasurer's office, but the, yeah. Yeah,
So, when's the last time we did that?
You can't because it
I
goes
can't.
through the state auditor or comptroller's office
Yeah,
now.
it doesn't-
We don't get names anymore.
I don't mean the state piece, I mean the local piece that we collect directly.
I can't, because there are some that use both. They rent on their own and they use Airbnb.
Okay.
So they may be paying through the state and they may be paying on their own.
Okay, all I
We
want to know
do
is,
send out a letter asking.
curious about is if we made the process more efficient, digital, electronic, we might not have to have as many personnel. Are there any innkeepers who can ask, anybody here, any comments on that, what you experience?
We would.
You don't have to share if you don't want to.
Yeah, this has been a topic that has, it's just a nagging nuisance kind of thing. I mean, I'm all about efficiency in our operation and in my personal workflow. And when I compare the way I pay state sales tax to the way I pay innkeeper's tax, it's like the dinosaur and a jet. So when I go to the state website to pay my sales tax, it takes me about 15 seconds. I don't have to write my name, I don't have to sign it, I don't have to put my phone number, I don't have to put my official title, I don't have to do hand calculations. And in the last 30, almost 2 years of mailing in innkeeper's tax statements for 2 properties, I have never made a mistake apparently on my calculations, and I'm not that good. I'm just not that good. And so I've been curious about that. But the process when I fill out these innkeeper's tax forms is that I get a photocopy, I get a set for each property with 12 sheets of paper in it in the mail, which I would think would be expensive with the cost of mail going out and very time-consuming process to fix all those bundles to send out to, I don't know how many properties we have. 200 to 400. I mean, it would be terribly burdensome. But I believe that the efficiencies could be extreme to be able to offer that for our innkeepers here, to be able to pay our innkeepers tax just the way we do our sales tax. And since we have so many vacation home rentals that are using Airbnb, everything's all mixed up in a mash the way it is now. And I don't know that the value that we used to have for having that kind of detail with who's paid and who hasn't paid is relevant now that it's all mixed together. And even then, I believe there are stipulations in the Indiana Code for Brown County that will allow the CBC to look for that information going directly to the state. And so, in my personal opinion, I think it would be wonderful to not have to deal with any of that paper. I mean, I've got to, compared to what I do with the state, I've got to fill that out, I've got to do the calculations, I've got to check my calculations. I have to go into my program and write a paper, and then produce a paper check, photocopy it, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and give it to the post office, when I could just take 15 seconds and boom, it's off to the races, paid and done. So I think this would be a great way for the county council to fine-tune its efficiency quotient. In my personal opinion, if it's taking a full-time job to open envelopes and deposit checks and produce a spreadsheet and all of that, when it could just be a one-and-done entry into the bank account, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me for the county to do that any longer. But if there is some compelling reason to continue that practice, I believe the CBC should be paying for it and not the county council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Question? No, thank you.
I would like to state that this position is not just for innkeepers. Like, it is not going to be able to cut a position or anything.
Well, briefly, is there any viability of going electronic versus paper?
You don't have the software for it.
I mean, does someone have software to be able to do it that way? I don't. And then if there is software, you're gonna have to pay for it that way.
I mean, I think the question is, what if the state did it like they do the other half of the.
Okay, so innkeepers for last year was over $1 million. Okay, if I knew this was going to be a topic, I would have came prepared, but I am
No,
not, so.
it's not a grilling, we're just asking
Just
questions.
But, I mean, just figure interest on $500,000. I mean, that's how much money. I don't know.
We're not against getting the money, it's just how we get the money.
Yes, the administrative cost and I mean, if you know.
And tracking's a big deal, I understand.
Yes, and I'm not saying that, could it be more efficient with the paper? Yes, it is very time costly and getting those packets together. And then you have innkeepers call and say, well, I can't find my papers, can you print me new ones? Like, it would be nice if, and maybe this is something I look on doing, just putting the forms on the county website and saying, you can go off and print them on your own and fill them out.
Are there some other county treasurers who have an innkeeper's tax? Have you talked
see what the others
about how they do it?
So we have a spring conference coming up in March. I can reach out to some other county treasurers and ask them. We have a lot compared to a lot of counties. So I think to find another county that is on the same level as we are is not, and I don't mean, I mean, because like, I don't know, Marion County or Monroe or, you know, I'm sure they have a lot, but it's more hotels and things like that. It's not as many.
Okay, but paper checks are becoming quite antiquated nowadays, but just curious how we can move from that. Can't see
I mean,
much.
we have some people paying cash.
I know, let's go down too.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We still got the question of the attrition fund. Are we acceptable to that, or where are we?
Well, so I mean, I think you've got some questions about when she's leaving, how much you need.
And that's
It's
the thing,
months
like, I
out.
don't know exactly when she's leaving. What I'm asking is for your approval of maybe 40 hours worth of pay to go towards me keeping her on to help train the new person coming in.
I mean, I think I'd be open to it like months from now, but if we're looking at some pretty serious potential budget cuts from the state. I mean, it sounds like a pretty small amount, but it sounds like, kind of like the vote centers, there's still a lot open left, and when she leaves, if she leaves possibly.
I'm not asking for like if she left tomorrow, or gave me her 2 weeks and I could find somebody to come in and there was a week of overlap, I'm going to ask for a week now or a week in July.
So the issue is you just want a week, period. You don't guarantee that.
Yes, I'm not.
When it.
Okay.
Yes, I'm trying to be prepared for my budget, for my office, to keep it running, to keep people trained. I am constantly behind on training because of turnover for whatever reason.
So I'll take a motion to offer a week of attrition fund.
I'll make a motion.
Second, anyone? Motion. Anyone?
I think Jim said, yeah.
Did you say yes?
I was watching the dog on the screen.
All right.
What did you say?
So you've gone to the dogs.
Yeah, well, they're looking at the dog. Hey, Judy, your dog. What did you ask, Gary?
We made a
Dan
motion.
made a motion.
Give her a week of funds.
Yeah, it's 40 hours, 40 hours,
40 hours.
$5.35 an hour, right? Is that what you said?
Sure, I mean, that's about what the county pays, yeah.
$5.35 an hour, yeah.
Just calling in support here.
So, Teresa said, all right.
You don't have a second for this? Because you're.
I'll second it.
Okay, I started saying, because you're creating a bottleneck here that she does not need.
Okay, I agree. So we got a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Got it, okay.
Darren,
Let's go to Locke. Roll call.
Darren, Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Is this your last request for the year? Ann?
Thank you, no, I'm not promising that at all.
Thank you. No.
I'm leaving my door open.
All right, next item. Surveyor certified salary increase. You want to share with us about that, Julie?
sure, I will. I don't want to, but I will.
Yes, right.
We got an IC that was left on my desk telling us that the surveyor is now a licensed surveyor and we need to increase his pay by 1.5.
State statute, right.
Yes, state
1.5%
statute.
of what?
No, not increases paid by 1.5, increases paid to 1.5 times.
Okay. Right.
What the non-licensed
He gets
surveyor
50% more.
was.
That's the issue.
So we took the non-licensed surveyor's amount,
Which is what?
26,000, 26 something. It was 26 something, I
Is
don't
that-
know.
26 an hour?
26,000.
Okay, we'll clarify.
And times it times 1.5 for 1.5.
40 grand.
And then now it's going to be $39,050. And you have the salary ordinance in front of you to actually look that up.
Susan, is it the previous pay of the previous surveyor, or like the range of the surveyor? How do we
Of
set?
what our salary is for the surveyor who does not
current-
have a license.
You're right.
What sets the salary of our previous surveyor?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was 50% of a 16.
What sets the salary of our previous surveyor? What was that based upon, do we know?
I think he's
I do
asking.
not.
Some of them were sent an IC code about that.
She's looking it up. I can tell.
I actually have it on my desk, but you want me to run down and get it? Because I sent it to you all.
Right, I remember.
Yeah.
Well, if we assume our present surveyor or previous surveyor was being paid properly, we can then just approve the 50% here.
Yeah, which it would be 39,000, and then he gets $4 for each mile and $4 for each cornerstone that he sets.
What?
Each
Yeah.
mile marker, you're saying?
Yeah.
Mile marker, it's not just each mile that he goes
Yes.
drives, let's clarify.
$4
Those are
a
surveying
mile.
issues.
Yeah. How do you budget for that?
On the, did you not read
Say
the
what?
thing I
How do
sent
you
you?
budget for
Yeah,
that?
but-
$4 a corner and.
Depends on how active he is, we don't know right now.
$4 a mile.
No, it's mile marker.
Mile marker.
Identifying a mile marker.
Right.
I heard it says he got $4 for every mile he drove.
Mile marker.
And he's required by statute to cover a certain amount of those per year.
We'll buy a
He
helicopter,
is.
and he won't
That'd
be
be
driving,
cheaper.
there's no
So-
compensation. Yeah.
Hand glider and
Okay. Anything, Susan?
Sorry, I'm still trying to
Should we
pull up.
maybe, I see our volunteer fire chief back here, should we put him on while she's looking at, you need one, like 5
Yeah,
minutes?
like-
or-
Let's just say right here, you don't have to make any type of decision on this tonight.
No.
There is a budgeted amount in there. He's not going to run out of money in that line item
Okay.
until August,
I move we table the
right? So
decision.
understand that.
Is he being paid the full amount?
No, he's not being paid right
No.
now.
He's not being paid right.
No, well,
Okay.
He's only
no,
being paid
currently
the
he's
old-
not,
the old
because
amount.
the salary that we approved, or that you approved was for Dave Harden.
Can we table
He was
this
not a
while
licensed
Susan gets
surveyor.
a chance to look and we hear from the fire department guy, get him out of here?
Do I do that, Susan? Do we need to do that?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I can
Yeah.
try to look some
Nick,
things up.
come on up.
Yeah.
But
How long you take, Nick?
I will try to keep it short, because, my God.
30 seconds.
I believe you all received like a slideshow my wife made. This is her strong suit, so I'm just here because I listen to my wife.
You can wait till next
Basically, I just
time and
wanna
let her do
highlight-
it.
Do what?
You can wait till next month, and let her do it.
I would love nothing more. No, so we just want to basically, Scott came to one of our fire association meetings last month, talking about innkeeper's tax. Don't want to get into that again, because we're clearly not at that point. But basically, the conversation was we need to come sell ourselves, and I think we need to start having conversations with council, commissioners, everybody, the community as a whole, about the fire service, about our fire department. So just to highlight some of the things, we did just under 1,000 calls last year on an all volunteer basis. We are, for what we're given, we do an incredible job and we do some great work in the community. However, there are some very considerable gaps in public safety in Brown County. So while we do a great job, it's not good enough, in my opinion. And our trends are going this year, we're at 132 runs already, and we're not covering them all, to be honest. So at the end of the day, I wholeheartedly believe when somebody picks up the phone and calls for help, that somebody should be helping them in a timely manner, and it's not happening right now. Also in that packet was a lot of our run volume stuff, which that's data that speaks for itself. A lot of it also is finances that we get, which is really not a whole lot. And I know that currently, you guys really have nothing to do with that, the innkeeper's tax. I think the bill gets pushed through, that might change. Again, it's not at that point in the discussions. But firefighting is super duper expensive, and I know you probably hear the sheriff's department all the time talking about their needs and everything. Fire department and firefighting is way more expensive than law enforcement. Just for comparison, I just bought a fire engine last year that was $750,000. Which I think a police cruiser is probably fully outfitted, probably under 200,000. I wouldn't know, I'm just guessing, because it's Ford Explorer.
I think.
So it's very, very expensive. Like last year, we ended up spending, a lot of that was outfitting this new engine. However, we spent more than we brought in. We have worked with our township trustee for Washington Township for me. He's more than doubled that contract amount for us over his term. He's now out the door. He's moving and resigning, so hopefully we can have just as good of a relationship with the new guy. But the town leaves a lot to be desired, to be honest. And I'll be honest, there's some bad feelings there. I feel that there's not been a whole lot of good faith with them. We've been stuck at the same contract amount for as long as I've been here, so 13 years. Which is $20,000, which doesn't really pay my insurance. My insurance is like $22,000 every year. for that. And basically my point is I don't foresee, volunteerism is dying as it is. And I don't see how we can continue forward on our current path. I'm not saying get rid of volunteers, because as long as people are willing to do it, by all means, I'll put them to work. But we really need to look at paying people to do this for their full-time job. At least for my station, there are, the fire service is a whole mess.
How many people would be needed to staff a full-time fire department?
Well, depends on how much money we pay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How much would, the bare minimum, what would be needed for a full-time staff in the fire department?
That varies. How good do you want your department to be? I mean, do you want them to be able to do anything, or do you just want to have somebody that has a name on the door and says something? So the standards, there's a million different agencies that kind of govern what fire departments do. One of the standards is the NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association. That's 4 people per company. So like an engine would be 4 people. For 24/7, depending on the schedule, that's 3 shifts, so that'd be 12 people for that, and that's just one engine, and that really doesn't cover, I mean, that would cover like my station, but if we're talking on a bigger scale, it doesn't cover the whole county really. Like trying to have 4 people, 24/7 cover anything bigger than a township is asking a lot of those folks.
Is there a way to do like a hybrid paid?
Yes, so, and that's what I would be an advocate for, is it's called a combination. So it's not going full career. Career would be like Indianapolis, full career, no volunteers. What I would be more of an advocate for is a combination of career and volunteers. Because, I mean, again, volunteers are just gonna save you money at the end of the day, as long as they are able to help out and are willing to help out, I'll take them. But like right now, I mean, I've got 13 people on my roster, and we're trying to do 1,000 runs, and we're not all available at the same times, and we work during the day, so a lot of those runs are during the daytime, Monday through Friday.
What is average wage for a firefighter, just at the firefighter level now?
Here regionally, it's about 60,000.
Per hour, right? It's about one.
Like Monroe is roughly about that. Start pay at Columbus is the same as that. Bloomington, I don't know what they're at, because they just got a massive pay increase.
But places like Bartholomew County, they have a huge tax base. We have, and that's the reason we're still volunteers. We have no tax base, even if we got the tax for the gate.
True.
That's still not going to come near to financing.
It is true and not true at the same time. So I work full-time in Bartholomew County at one of the county departments. Just what I cover in assessed value in Washington Township and the town of Nashville combined is about twice what the township I work at full-time is. And there are 5 full-time employees, and they have a permanent part-time position every day.
Say that again.
That's a fire department?
So yes, at the fire department I work at full-time, there are 5 full-time employees. They just do Monday through Friday staffing right now. So it's 10-hour shifts, but there are 5 full-time employees and a permanent part-time every day that makes the same hourly wage, but different people fix those shifts up. The assessed value for that township, which is what pays my salary, and everybody else is 300 and something million in assessed value. 2025's assessed value for Washington Township and town of Nashville, which is what I cover for Nashville Fire Department, is over 600 million.
So by you coming here, what is your goal? What are you wanting to achieve today? What's your?
Just having a conversation. We just want to, I really don't know any of you. I know Scott, that's about it. And I know a couple of your faces, but I really don't know you guys. And I have noticed, and our department has noticed, that people really don't understand what we do as the fire department. They don't understand what goes into it, and that's fine. No one really cares until they need us.
So, I mean, Patrick, you may know better than anybody what they do, but your primary function is medical response and vehicular accidents, if I'm right?
Well, our primary function is fire, but the thing we do most, yes, we do respond to medical emergencies, we respond to vehicle accidents, we respond to any kind of fire alarms, all of it. The fire service ever since 9/11 has really turned into an all hazards agency, so we kind of turned into, if no one knows who to call, you call the fire department.
So if Jim has a heart attack, who's gonna show up? Does the sheriff have EMTs? Coroner. The coroner, yeah.
Sometimes, maybe,
Just
unfortunately.
make a note of that in your response.
Just call the coroner.
Yeah, just call the
The
coroner.
response time would be way too long for a sheriff's officer, because I don't really know how many are per shift. But, you know, if they're down here in Fruitdale and you're clear up there in Washington Township, you know, you might as well just tell them to call the coroner. So I get that. And I was an Indianapolis police officer, so I understand, I've dealt with that a lot, and I have worked with the old Wishart Hospital, if you're familiar with it. I was one of their EMTs, so I understand what you're saying. But the cost, and I get that, I understand that fully. And I'd be 100% for it, but the problem is with everything here, where would we get the money? That's the thing. Well, I mean, they may have to cut, you know, I'm sure you will see property tax, the governor's, and I understand that too, is gonna cut them. And we may have to cut people out of jobs here. I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah, I used to work for this county for 6 years, and I think that there's probably some fine tooth combs that can go through all levels of government.
Right.
So lay it on us.
But that's true.
Yeah, Nick, lay it on us. What's your budget in Barthol? What's that 5-person, do you know that staffing budget?
I think that they do, I wanna say it's either 6 or 800,000. I don't really remember.
Okay.
But their township pays for a lot, and they're trying to do better too. That's the thing about it. If you wanna do this and you do it right, it is going to cost money, and I understand you guys, honestly, you guys have the hardest job in this county.
And you're what, Washington Township?
Yes.
So, I mean, and then we have the rest of the county too.
Correct, but, so we are by far busier than anyone else. No one else even does half of what we do in this county. And I'm not saying, they struggle just like I struggle. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas, but
And I'm not against
am not
you,
the
don't
God
think
here.
that for me, I'm not against you at all.
I fully understand, but a conversation needs to start, and it's nothing we're gonna solve tonight.
Right, well, I understand that.
Just so, I have a scanner and I hear all this stuff. Most of them, there aren't many fires, many medical emergencies, lift assists, things of that nature.
There are,
Well, what about if we-
and so EMS is also a huge issue in this county, but that's not my problem
Would
currently.
you just in a thumbnail, just real quickly, help the council understand our ambulance situation currently from your perspective?
There are 2 ambulances contracted through IU Lifeline. They both sit in town, so they are very far away from everybody else. Like if they get called to the Corpus Sweetwater Lakes area, 30 minutes to drive there.
The way it works, I understand, is Corpus Sweetwater has their own ambulance.
They do.
May or may not get there.
They are volunteered,
Yeah, and
just like
some of
we
the other
are.
fire departments like Hamlin and Jackson have ambulances.
No.
Well, I mean, they're not the big ambulance that they ultimately, they don't have ambulances, they may go and do a medical run, but then they have to wait for the ambulance to get them.
Yes, they
I needed
operate
an
just the
ambulance
same as me.
myself. I had a heart attack, so I understand what you're talking about. I live in Washington Township as well, and the volunteers showed up. I was just lucky there's a guy down the street. I get that. When it was Columbus Regional Hospital, I personally, because I've used both ambulances, IU and them, it was like, cost-wise, I remember it was a little over $2,000 for Columbus Regional. I used IU, and they still took me to Columbus Regional, and it was over $16,000. So I don't know what we pay for ambulance.
I don't know, but that is billing between you.
But that's
and
a part of your
insurance.
service, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if that, if all our money's utilized for that ambulance contract, maybe we're paying way too much for one service versus another. I don't know, that might be something to be.
I don't know
looked
what
into.
you do pay, but 2 ALS ambulances are pretty,
$550,000 a year.
that's probably very cheap for 2 ALS ambulances. But those are hospital based, so IU has more money to have to do with.
Right,
So-
but you can see the disparity there too, so that might be something that you brought this up. that we
The
might
problem
look at.
with the service it actually is because the fire service is failing a lot, both ambulances are going to one call. That is very poor resource management.
And for everybody here in the council hasn't dealt with emergencies like you, a lot of times there are responders, and I don't know what vehicle you use for emergency runs, but then when you get there, you have to wait for a transport vehicle.
Correct.
And I know they don't understand that vernacular probably.
Correct.
And how that works.
Correct.
Is there a way to incorporate our paid ambulance service into,
Yes.
our ambulance service into a paid
Yes,
fire
that would
department?
require a ton of planning and people probably smarter than me with EMS, with regards to EMS. So I wish my wife was here, she's a paramedic.
And insurance,
Um,
and insurance as well.
Yeah, so
That would
fire
start
departments
really
can have ambulances and can transport people. It requires a different provider certification, and it requires an ambulance, equipment, drugs, all the stuff.
It probably costs more than our budget.
I don't know what it would cost. I'll be honest with you. I
So
don't-
there-
That's an option to explore. I don't know what it would cost.
It wouldn't necessarily be a cost savings, it may
And
be.
I don't know if it would be a cost savings. I can tell you it would probably be a on-the-street upgrade. A lot of the people that work at Lifeline are not from here and they do not know where they're going. I can use an example of Saturday night. We had a call on 46 West, they went to 46 East. I had to wait an additional 15 minutes for an ambulance to show up for this person. There was another call a few weeks ago, it was cardiac arrest, meaning somebody's heart had stopped. Lifeline had call-ins, they were running one ALS truck, which is the people that have paramedic and can administer drugs and everything, and one BLS truck, which is, they can't do any of that. The BLS truck got stuck going into cardiac arrest, so we had no medic. So unfortunately, somebody passed away because of that. And they were very far away, so tough spot for the responders, tough spot for people, tough spot for that family. So there are some considerable gaps with EMS, with fire, with all of it.
Okay, so you basically want to present us, just to keep us aware of the possibilities, what's going forward. Appreciate that.
I think what he's saying is people are dying because we don't have adequate public safety.
That's correct.
That's what
Correct.
he's saying.
And
Current got my attention.
Current model, it's not the council's problem to deal with, to be honest with you. You guys don't give us any money. I know that there really is no money to give, so that's fine.
Susan, we can say something or no?
And he actually, Nick, just hit it on the head right there, understanding your role, although you can have some input. The commissioners are responsible for ambulance service within your county, and so if they contract, they contract. If the commissioners want to establish a Brown County ambulance service, that's going to take some resources, and they would come to you for funding of that and to help with that. The second thing, with regard to fire protection, that's a township level issue. Fire protection is at the township level issue. And in order to get tax dollars to these volunteer fire departments, you would have to establish fire protection districts, which then can tax and get a portion of real property taxes, and the fire protection districts can then contract with the volunteer fire department.
We have that. but
My
it's been-
point is, there is one, it's defunct, and it's been a roadblock for 15 years. No, 18 years.
I was on the original fire board, and I know how that went. It went, and that was exactly what
Correct.
they were going to do, and there was so much bickering, like a lot of things in this
There
county.
probably still would be, but
Right,
it's,
so everybody's defending their territory, and it fell apart. So as a result, Scott, we have people dying for that very reason, yes, and that could have been
So-
addressed 15 years ago, because I think I was on that board in 2008.
I don't disagree. I think that it was poorly executed 15 years ago. I would just, I don't really care what happens. Honestly, I've about
Well,
had
you
my-
should, because it could happen to you.
Oh, I do care. Trust me, sir, I care about this county more than anybody could put into words. But I'm born here, raised here. I have fought.
I'm glad you
for
brought it
everything
up, and I'm glad she just stated what she stated.
I don't care what
And
the
it's not just
solution is.
obviously the council level, that some of the leaders in the fire departments, because I've been there, I've been sitting up here with that whole board in the past. Nothing got solved, all because, and I'm not addressing you down on this, but I don't know if you were around then, but everybody just stood their ground and everybody wanted to be in control, and it just does not work. So therefore, we
Fully
have
agree.
people dying.
I don't care how we get there, I just know that we can't continue down the path we're on. That's my point.
Right. Well, it's good that you made people aware today that we have people dying in this county because you can't get ambulance service.
You know, the other thing, Gary, last comment, you know, the sheriff's been in front of our council for the past, gosh, I don't think it's been quite 2 years, kind of really hammered on us. The fire departments have been begging us for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, I can think what the sheriff's department was 20 years ago, and it's insane the growth that they've had in that period of time. The fire service has had zero growth, and there is some point to your credibility to what you've said. Part of it is our own fault. Part of it is the rest of the community as well.
Right, it's all of us.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So did that give you enough time, Susan?
Sure, back to surveyors, yeah. So found the statute, and it's also what Julie had in her folder and that she sent out to you all, but it's very clear that the compensation that is fixed for a licensed registered surveyor is 1.5 times what you have fixed for your unlicensed unregistered surveyor. So when you fix the salary under the budget at the 26,000 for your unlicensed unregistered surveyor, you're automatically multiplying that 1.5 times to get your licensed registered surveyor. So the issue, and I apologize, my mic's not on, the issue is it has to be corrected in the salary ordinance.
Which it is.
Which it is. So then from the period of time of January 1 through the date that he gets paid his approved salary, the required salary, we have some makeup that we have to do. So that will have to get made up.
Retro is pay, back pay.
Right, back pay, exactly. And then, because of the change in salary, whether you find it someplace, I don't see where you find it someplace else in the 100s there to do anything except an additional appropriation into that line item at some point in time this year before he runs out of money.
So it is based on what we have established as the
Yes.
unlicensed.
Correct.
We had established $26,032.91. So if you do the 1.5, it's $39,050 because we have to round it up to keep it, put it in.
So, you need a motion?
I don't know that there's really any other discussion on that. You're gonna clear it up when you pass your salary ordinance,
Which
right?
you have up there.
So, and then,
Oh, okay, so good.
right,
You are, Julie, you're just way ahead of us here.
Okay, so
and then
we're.
probably by July, we're looking at an additional appropriation.
And it's required by Indiana code, so there's really no discussion for us to have on it.
There's
No,
not.
We need to really,
Yeah, yeah.
we don't have a choice.
Okay, so,
We have to do it.
not to rush you after I've taken.
Right.
No, what next?
That's correct.
Next is 2024 salary ordinance. Is that Teresa?
I don't think that's ready yet.
Okay, is it not ready? Well, it's,
Is it ready?
I mean, we table it.
Yeah, I don't think it's ready yet.
Okay, so I've been tasked with working on the 24 salary ordinance, and I have a couple questions for the council. I asked for the minutes of your approval for the increased salaries for the sheriff's department, and I don't really see that in the minutes of what you approved.
specifics.
Correct,
For the DOC increase?
correct.
Okay, yeah, we went through that, but,
Nobody can produce it. I mean, that they're,
so we missed it in minutes. So, Susan, can we amend the minutes to include that? You need
you
it in
have to
minutes.
have it first. You haven't even established what it is. I have one spreadsheet that says the sheriff's department got 5%.
You
That's
talked to the
it.
sheriff about this?
I've talked to everybody about this, nobody's giving me numbers. That's why I'm here to tell you, that's why it's not done. And I have no backup. It's like we agreed to pay something and you didn't give any backup to do it.
Would you, I mean, that's just a thought, because I know Brad's thought through this and we've all talked about it and already approved it, but would you talk to Brad, get a list of the pay ranges that you need for the salary ordinance, and then just,
We have them for 25. We don't have them
Oh,
for
We
24.
don't have, this is 24, it's like you, I don't know what happened, I
Trying
was
to amend
involved.
the 24 ordinance, because that's how you're supposed to do it.
well, that's what we voted on, was in 24 to do that in 24, so I'm not sure.
There's nothing.
It was based on the presentation made by the sheriff.
My understanding from reading that was that you guys were supposed to approve his presentation after this. So he came to you, he said what he needed, he was supposed to gather numbers and come back to you for a sign off on those numbers.
Based on.
And that's, I think, the piece that didn't happen.
We approved the process, but you're saying we didn't give them the numbers.
Correct. You approved the process, but you didn't approve the actual
numbers.
If it's not in
All right, can we stop this for a minute, and can we deal with the fact pattern? And first of all, on July the 15th, here's what we discussed. And I'm reading right out of the minutes. Sheriff Brad Stocksdale, he's still asking for raises for his employees. Dave Redding has helped him prepare a handout for the stipend schedule. Commissioners need to create an ordinance for the 4,000 series fund. If the revenue from the DOC prisoner goes away, the stipends go away. They should call the fund the DOC retention fund. Then the council will set up a non-reverting DOC fund. Then there will need to be a salary ordinance amendment to add separate lines for the per hour rate for the DOC on top of the base pay. That was in the minutes for July. August rolls around, the following month. Sheriff's Department, Brad Stocksdale wants the county to front the money from the DOC so he can give his employees their raises. Since they began, the state has been billed $66,384. Brad wants this to be retro back to the 1st of June with stipends for the employees. Motion to take the August total and create a stipend structure to go forward with the amount of $66,384 and to retro this back to June of 2024. Action approved. Moved by Dave Redding, seconded by Scott Rod. Motion passes unanimously. That's what the council approved. Okay?
No, we have a problem because he didn't get 66,000.
I'm just reading what was in the minutes. Okay?
So what's reality?
The reality is we do not, well, first of all, I guess my question is this, is that payroll in the auditor's office has processed payroll going back to June 1 for every 2 weeks and have paid these employees something above and beyond what their pay grades were, right?
And they're all negative.
Pardon me?
All those fund lines are negative.
Yeah.
All those account lines are negative.
Yeah, so all the funds for the employees are all,
time.
right, because we
didn't
never
have
put
money.
any, we didn't put any money in those.
DOC has to pay.
To compensate for that,
And it will
so,
continue that way because we're
So-
not getting the money
Yeah.
in time to pay the.
Well, and here's the other thing too, you got 62,000 from the DOC, from the state.
yeah, we had a meeting with Brad on Friday, okay? And to try to understand where we are with regards to what they billed the DOC versus what the actual receivables are. And
Which-
clear, obviously.
Which is actually a whole nother.
I know, that's a whole different
Yeah,
subject.
I'm just
right?
worried about the fact that we are getting ready to go into March and we don't have 24 salary ordinance
Right,
done.
right, it's a train wreck.
It is a train
It is a
wreck.
train
I
wreck.
went through it again today
Right.
and
So what do we propose, what would you, the two of you, we're not gonna be able to resolve this in a council
My
meeting.
question
This needs to
is-
be resolved.
We based these stipends on $66,000, is that correct?
Well, I just read the minutes, okay? Yeah,
So
66 grand.
basically, you
Right,
said
right,
in the
yeah,
minutes that
right,
you approved
right,
$66,000 for the stipends going retro back to June, right?
Correct.
So is that not what we would take to actually give
Yeah,
them?
again, we don't have the time this evening, Julie, you know that as well as I do.
Yeah, I do.
This issue is gonna take some time, it's gonna need some people to sit down at the table, and we're gonna have to figure it out, and then we're gonna have to type it up and get the thing really organized, because it's a disorganized mess, in my professional opinion.
Well, every time we touch it, we try to work on it.
Yeah.
If we find another huge problem that's like, okay, well, this didn't happen, so now we gotta go back to square one again.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to think that we're not doing it, but there are a lot of
But
missing.
to me, it's the
pieces
council's
here.
fault for the situation that we're in.
I kind of feel like if you're gonna give a pay increase, you're gonna approve it, you should have dollar amounts with it.
We should have never approved it until we had everything, all the ducks, all the i's were dotted and the t's were
Because
crossed.
that $62,000 for 24 is trapped in
So
25.
let's do this. How do we go forward? How do you want to go forward, Mr. President?
He has a
Dot the
suggestion.
i's and cross the t's. What do you got?
He has a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Can somebody on the council get a hold of Dave Redding to see if he has that list?
That would be nice.
I think, Susan, I mean, I recognize that
Susan
document.
just
Is this the document you think?
Would Brad not know about the
It looks
list?
familiar and it had pay ranges on it, I thought.
Well, see, that's the thing, this says 122.40 a pay, but the paperwork I seen that has disappeared and cannot be found again said 139 a pay. So that already is a discrepancy.
But also keep in mind, for the 2025, there's $183,000 in stipends in the 2025 salary ordinance for the jail, the deputies, and the dispatch. It's the total, 183 grand and some change. So I don't know how we arrived at the 183,000 and some change for 2025 for those three separate areas.
I don't either, because
Okay,
I'm not.
and so the other question is, you know, how did we arrive at the compensation for June 1, for 2024, right? I don't know, did you get instructions from Brad of what was to be paid each employee every pay period, every month, or did you? So there's some questions that we. For, right.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so I think there's some questions that we're gonna have to sit down and flush out the questions that need to be asked. And then we're gonna have to go on a fact-finding mission to gather that information and be able to put it together.
2025, I did get those numbers.
It's 183 grand.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know, my question is, how did we arrive at $183,000?
That's what they told us. That's what
Well,
they
how
did.
did you arrive at it, okay? It's like 183 grand, that's what we're gonna
The
do.
sheriff's department gave us.
How did we arrive
This
at
is
it?
Well, you'll have to ask the
I'm not
sheriff's
asking
department.
you guys that question, because that's your,
Ask the
right.
sheriff's department.
That's a
how they
question for
arrived
Brad
at it.
Stockdale, right? So you know, we're gonna have to sit down soon. This needs to be addressed, correct? And Mr. President, I'm not sure how you want to address this, what you want to do, but you're the president, you make the decision.
Let's let Jim do it.
I mean, honestly, you're gonna have to come up with an audit. You're gonna have to perform an audit on it to make sure that you know your dollar amounts, because we, at this point, we don't have a leg to stand on with State Board of Accounts when they come in to check us, because,
That's exactly right.
so I'm
So
gonna.
let's do this, let me look at my schedule, I will call you tomorrow. Let's
Okay.
get a date on the calendar. If
Yes,
it takes us all day, it takes us
2
all day.
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
I'm on.
and let's sit down, and I want to sit down with a very few of us.
Well,
Let's
I have to ask my boss, but
I want to knock this out. Is that okay, Tim? Are you okay with allowing your?
Is there any value getting greedy
I
into
promise
this?
I won't be-
Yeah, we don't need to get greedy. We need to do
honestly,
it
it's
first,
embarrassing.
and then we don't need to go
I
greedy.
don't want to read
How many
either.
times have we talked about this?
So, yeah, all right, so I will call you tomorrow and we will get a date on the calendar so we can get this issue resolved.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Yeah. All right. We're looking to lock things down.
$150 an hour.
Yeah, that's right.
Chief,
Nothing in this.
Chief, you're hired, you're hired. You have it.
Okay, we've got 2024 salary ordinances being worked on.
Move we table 2024 salary.
So if you want to postpone doing anything with the 2025 until we come up with some answers, that might be a good idea.
All right, sounds like a good idea. All right. All right, we'll take a motion.
Oh, we got one
Table
more.
both of those.
If she's been the last.
Mary's
Not there yet.
Wait a minute, we got to table both of those. We need to take a motion for that?
I move we table both of those. I only see one on there, 2024 salary ordinance.
It was on there later.
This table.
Second that motion, anyone?
Darren, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Paul, take,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
No.
Gary,
yes.
What's the point?
Patrick,
We're just wasting our time.
We talking about the, I couldn't understand.
Table the two salary ordinances till they
Can
get
we,
fixed,
can we
figured out.
get some kind of clarification?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes, table it.
I
Okay,
did, I'm just objecting.
Next
We did do a
item.
Roll call for procedural stuff like this, it's just.
okay, next item was appoint Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy Classification and Compensation Committee to oversee compensation revisions. It's going to be happening within the next 2 or 3 months. We probably need 3 people from the council to do that. Not only that, but to carry it forward knowledgeably after it is implemented. So, who would like to be on that committee? Judy, one. Pardon? Anyone else? Good educational piece.
You can put me on there, if you want. If you don't want me on there, then don't put me on there.
Jeez.
If somebody else wants to do it, put them on there.
It's fine, Jim's got good financial skills for that.
No, I can't add to it too.
I know it. So you got a computer.
Yeah, really.
How about one of you guys want to look into that?
Joel, you've dealt with employees before with this.
Yeah, you can be hard nosed on them.
Yeah, come on, Joel. Or what about this guy? He's the Marion County
Patrick.
government
Pure
employee.
government.
He's
I'm not
government.
even sure what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, that's my question.
That's all right, that's good, let him be on it. It'll be a surprise.
That's what got everybody into trouble here.
All right, we trust you to work through
No,
it.
it's job descriptions and pay ranges.
Okay.
Our new salary structure.
New salary structure.
Thank you.
So Scott, why don't you flip the quarter and then you guys call it heads and tails.
I'm, Nick, you can stay if you want. Gosh, you didn't have to come all the way back. I think Joel and Patrick should be very, very interested in this.
One of them
As a good learning experience.
Are you interested in that?
I'll do it.
Oh, I'd say that's
I'll
fine.
give it a shot.
Yeah, let Patrick give it a shot. Okay, got Judy, Jim, and Patrick.
Yep.
We don't need to make a motion for any of that, do we?
That's
Just
fine.
appoint them?
Yep.
Okay, next item quickly, we have it, we want to have a brief finance committee update, and that means also we may have a new person on that commission.
Can we get Mary out of here? I don't know
Yeah,
why
get
she-
Mary out of
here. Hey, Mary, let's
I
go.
ate and I've had like 900 calories today, I'm
Oh,
telling
jeez.
I'm tired of her eyeballing me.
Yeah, let's get her out
Mary,
of
go
here.
ahead.
Yeah.
Mary wants some more money.
$620.
This is what they're talking about.
We got an ordinance here for, I got the number and everything else.
Read it, let's pass it.
Let's just read it and go do it. Let's do it unanimous this time,
Use
okay,
your
Mary?
gavel. Use your gavel here.
Okay.
It's me, you, and Jim, or?
Do I use it on there?
Yeah.
Here. Okay, boys, let's go.
Oh, did you see
Yeah,
that?
first time.
Oh, he's serious.
All right, additional appropriation ordinance after 7:30 it comes out. Additional appropriation ordinance 2025-002-018-001, Council Bill number 2, whereas it has been determined that it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget. Now therefore, Section 1, be it resolved by the County Council of Brown County that the expenses of the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the funds named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. General Fund 1,000, line 30,000, other services and charges, $620. Why don't you just throw in what they're for?
Absolutely. For years and years, we've had licenses in the assessor's office to get on the MyBoard multiple listing service. We need that as a tool for reassessment and sales verification. We have always been given that license, or those 3 licenses, for free. I was notified via email from MyBoard, I believe in October or November in the fall, after budget time, that they were going to be charging us effective April 1st.
Can't you tell them we're not gonna sell any property in the county until they let us have it free?
I wish they'd quit selling it for so much money. It's hard to do my job.
All right, motion?
Okay, total general funds, $1,620. Take a motion.
It's $620. Motion is to approve the additional appropriation request, ordinance 2025-002018, 001, Council Bill number 2, as requested by the assessor.
Second.
Okay,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, feel free to stick around for the rest of the meeting, Mary. The best part is, always at the end.
I'm gonna start eating my hands if I don't get to go have my
Okay,
little.
Gary, you gotta do a second reading right now.
Say what?
Do a second reading.
Oh,
For her.
Really? Okay, additional appropriation ordinance number, long names.
Wait a minute, do we have to motion to,
it was unanimous.
we need
Very
a
unanimous.
motion to suspend the rules and second reading?
No, you don't have to suspend.
Just have to read it.
Read it, okay.
Yep.
Council motion ordinance number 2025, as Scott just said, Council Bill number 2, whereas it has been determined that it is not necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget, now therefore section 1, be it resolved by the County Council of Brown County, that Indiana, that for the expenses of the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the funds named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. General Fund 1,000, line 30,000, other services and charges, $620, adopted by the council this 18th day of February 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
You are welcome.
Okay, brief thing on the finance committee update. We may want to replacing Scott with Darren, whatever.
Yeah, we've got, we're 50% way through the legislative session.
A brief one on that too.
We've seen really good results from the two bills the council wants to see moved, the innkeeper's tax bill and the gate fee bill. They both have seen huge bipartisan support votes through the House. We're 50% of the way through, and this is $8 million every 10 years for the county. I think it's incredibly important for me to stay focused on that. I'm also very closely monitoring Senate Bill 1, which is a major property tax cut to the council, and a lot of people are on fire over that. It looks like it's getting a little better, but I have got to stay focused here, finding many, many hours of monitoring these bills moving through the session, and I want to stay focused on this. And so I'm going to step off of the Finance Committee. I know Darren and Judy and even Patrick are interested in that, and so we got plenty of backfill on that, and so that's.
Scott, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. I heard a comment, leave the names out of it. Somebody made a comment about the innkeeper's tax, that the innkeeper's tax goes from 5 to 8%, that the actual, and this is what I don't understand, that is there a statute at the local level that speaks to how the innkeeper's tax money is to be spent, or is that at the state level? This individual implied that we're asking for an additional 3% to move it to 8%. However, that the county wouldn't be able to have access to any of that revenue because we're not changing the actual language in the, I don't know if it's a statute.
It's the state. It's the state. So let me clear that up. So the state ordinance defines what the maximum amount of the tax can be as set by the council, and the uses of the funds, which are essentially convention and tourism uses. And then what happens is the state passes that. If this bill goes through, it will change one character in the entire language for Brown County in the state code, one character. And the change will be from 5 to 8. One letter will be changed. And so what it says is basically we can set it up to 8% instead of up to 5%. That's the only change that appears to be in there now. Now, it can always change again. I don't expect it to. But what happens next is it comes to the council, and the council says, okay, we're gonna set it between 0 and 8%. And then between the council and the CVC budget request for the use of those funds, that will get filtered out. And there are a lot of different ways that you can fund tourism and convention services. It's not just the CVB. As we recently learned, it's also the music center.
Yeah, this person implied that we go from 5 to 8, nothing changes, and the CVC will get the 8% now, and they'll do whatever they want to with it.
Yeah,
I mean-
if the only thing that changes is 5 to 8, the wording of the Indiana code is all that money is under the umbrella of the CVC.
So the CVC will determine what happens with the money, and they will ask the council and work with the council to determine how that money is spent. Previously, as you know, they've spent it on the music center, they've spent it on the CVC, and they've spent it on grants to community nonprofits. There's a lot of different things that can happen there, and so it'll be hashed out by.
But the CVC will control the dispersion of the funds.
Don't forget, we appoint the majority of the CVC as a council.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's still, the CVC will make the decision on how that money is to be allocated.
And one fine point to correct in that last statement, no, the CVC has not spent money on the music center because all of the money that went to the music center has been paid back from the music center to the CVC. So no, the CVC is not paying for the music center.
Well, I guess it was reimbursed, so it's been spent and reimbursed.
Yeah.
Is that more accurate? Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so is that all right, Darren, you want to be on the finance committee?
Yes.
I know you expressed interest before, it's fine. Okay. And, go ahead.
Okay. We have a finance committee, and we now have a committee for the WIS.
Yes.
Should there be one person that's kind of the go-to person for these committees?
Well,
like a chair, do you have a chair?
Can we not allow you to be the chair next on that finance committee? It's a good point, though.
Well, I'm just asking, I don't care. I mean, you're the president, you can be the chair if you want, I
got a chair other things.
Right, we just don't.
Well, on that point, Jim, would you like to be chair
Of what?
of the finance committee?
I don't, whatever, I mean, to me,
Darren, do you want to be chair?
Yeah.
You know? Okay,
Yeah,
Garrett, do you want to be chair?
No?
Okay, I can take on the chair.
Okay, let me ask you, Mr. Chair, if the council decides to put you in that position,
Well,
help me understand why these should not be all public
issue.
meetings. Mr. Chairman.
Can I say something about that? Okay,
No.
some of these things, some of the meetings, these, apart from this one even, I've seen it, until we get our ducks in a row and do our due diligence to define the issues, if you open up to a public meeting, you can end up having a nightmare of public interaction that doesn't have the real issues on the table.
I have seen that happen.
Right, so you don't serve the public, but if we do take the time to get the logistics, the timetables, or whatever it may be in order, and then say, okay, we present it in a rational manner, we serve the public, and we would have public meetings. So that was the basis of our first meeting, was to say, yes, there may be logistical meetings that we need to do, and there may be public meetings where we need to bring the public in.
yeah, and Susan and I had a lengthy conversation on the phone. I don't think we were over there for more than an hour, right? So, so yeah, and basically, and I'm going to paraphrase the conversation, but essentially goes down kind of this way. As long as we, the finance committee, are seeking to understand the big picture, okay, trying to drill down in the weeds on certain occasions, right? But keep in mind, these conversations we're having with Reedy. So for example, at the finance committee meeting we had, I think it was last week, what we agreed to do is on our next council public work session, Jerry's coming in. He's going to take the full 3 hours.
Jerry Hickman from
Reedy. He's going to take the full 3 hours. And I got to send this out to the council members, but he's going to walk us through, I think, 19 different funds. And then he's going to get into the weeds on how the revenue comes for each one of these funds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's an educational session because there's a lot I don't know that I would like to understand. And so he's gonna come in and do that. They're currently obviously working inside the auditor's office with, supporting Julie. And until they get some of that math uncovered, because Julie's got to get her annual financial report, has to be filed by, is it March 1st? Yeah, so that we've got to get that done. That's, you're running out of time on that. And basically what happens, as long as the finance committee conversations are generic in nature, if, however, we begin to move in and we want to zero on a specific issue, so for example, take WIS and their recommendations. And at some point in time, probably May, is the finance committee is gonna have to have a pre-meeting, and then we're gonna have to have a meeting on our regular, or not a regular meeting, but our special session meeting with the full body council, that will be public, to talk about, do we adopt their recommendations? And if so, how much is that gonna cost? Or if, that's one issue, which that will be at the, the work session, the first Thursday of the month meetings. The other part is if the finance committee wants to speak to a specific issue, and I'm gonna use this because it's an easy, low-hanging fruit, PERF. And we wanna discuss the merits of PERF. That meeting needs to be public, has to be public. And so there are going to be times where we're going to be discussing sensitive, could be potentially sensitive issues, the employees, all sorts of people. Those meetings need to be public, advertised, and make sure they're well promoted. But they're going to be, most of the time, I think, unless we're dealing with a specific issue, they're going to be generic. And I'll say this to answer your question, Scott. With 3 plus, with 5 people, right, in a room, we're not wasting Julie's time, okay? So her time is valuable. We don't have to take the minutes, right? And furthermore, I think just being human beings, we will probably feel more at ease being very open in our conversations with one another. Whereas if it is a public meeting, not everyone's going to, some people may feel uncomfortable in a public meeting, being very open and frank discussions about the county's finances.
And I've seen this happen, the music center is one example. We had, brainstorming sessions, pass ideas off of each other. And they were all open to the public. And what happened with that is, somebody bounces an idea off somebody. It may go nowhere, but somebody picks it up and they say, this is what they're planning on doing. It never happened, never was serious consideration, but it got picked up by somebody because a brainstorming session needs to be a closed brainstorming session.
Right.
Where, like you said, you can say something that you may not ask at a public meeting, but you're gonna ask 2 other people at a committee meeting. But like you said, and I'm all about openness.
Yeah.
I don't like anything in the government being done behind closed doors. However, there's some certain brainstorming sessions, certain conversations, certain things that need a private environment of 3 people having a discussion, bouncing off of each other.
The challenge with this is the 4 of us on that finance committee have got to work to make sure that our competencies are well-rounded with all of us, and that we're all kind of on the same page and understand the challenges that we have. Because the other thing is, once we can identify those challenges, we've got to begin to then sit down and try to prioritize those challenges before we can drill down in the weeds and look for solutions to those challenges.
Like I said, when we come to a place where we find some of those ideas, it definitely needs to be.
Because to piggyback off what you said, I'll never forget, this would have been 2018 or 2019 when I was on the RDC and I was facilitating the conversations with Helmsburg, right? So when I found out that Helmsburg wasn't an incorporated area and the only incorporated community we had in Brown County was actually Nashville. So I went before, I've got a group of 35 people sitting around that table, and I simply floated the idea about Helmsburg incorporating itself, I thought they were gonna take me out and hang me from the tree. And I had to just immediately start backpedaling and say, look, it was just an idea. But they took me serious, and they had no part of it, and that's how that eventually led to the CDC, so.
Yeah, I
I remember
understand.
that meeting, the ropes just about
Were you
came
there?
out, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a good learning experience.
It was.
Yeah. Susan.
Susan, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
About what they're, I feel like it should be public. That's
So,
just-
you take this as just my observation, okay? As council personnel, I think that there's a lot about county finances that you don't understand, that's the education that's going to come out in some of these finance committee meetings. You don't know what your max levy is, you don't know what funds are in your max levy, you don't know where you can spend dollars and where you can't spend dollars, you don't know that you can't bond roads, there's a lot of stuff that Reedy's is going to have to educate you on in terms of, if we change this budget, how does it change something else? Because under your max levy, you have certain funds. And so, and right, there's, highway is just one area in particular that there's just a lot of education that needs to happen. Just in terms of how you use your dollars, where you get community crossings, what your PACER ratings are, like how all of that interacts. And it is difficult, and it sometimes is a little bit of institutional knowledge, which I'm sorry to say that, but a brand new person coming on the council doesn't know those things, and it does take a couple of years to get into that. And so, you as a council, like, you don't know what your funds are, and you don't know that you're in the red in some funds, and how we're going to have to potentially recode things in the LAO system and things like that. That's the kind of gritty stuff that the finance committee is going to get into with Reedy, is how do we recode that and take it out of the place where it really should have come out of, in order to make sure that you have general fund dollars to support your budget, which we already know is $600,000 in the red, right? So that's what the committee is going to be getting into with Reedy. When the committee has to bring forth a recommendation to council about what are your salaries going to be? What kind of raise are you going to be giving? How many employees? Are we going to have to cut employees from particular areas? All of that will be in open meetings.
Yeah, and let me interject something here. And I brought this up, I'm losing track, I haven't even spent. This county, and it's been stated in the past in meetings, but one of the biggest challenges that we have as a county government is our culture. And at the culture level is an issue of trust. And the challenge with a lack of trust within the culture of Brown County government has to do with the leadership of both the council and the commissioners, all right? And to go back to I uncovered something, okay? That there is no way I'm gonna bring this up in the public, because public really doesn't need to know what I know. Because if it came out in public, what would happen is people will quickly stand in judgment and assign blame. All right? And, the reality of it is that, standing in judgment and assigning blame in a specific department, when the truth of it is it's really not the department, it's really the council's failure. So at that finance committee, I brought this up, and I want to get it addressed, because what it has to do with is implementing policy. And we've got to put a policy in place so we don't have this issue anymore, all right? And it involves, obviously, the auditor's office. and it involves the finances. So in these finance committees, there may be, information or situations of which we need to address, because and I would love to see, again, and I said this, to me, I would really encourage all of us as Brown County government to try to embrace a continuous improvement process. Because if we all have a continuous improvement process, when someone makes a mistake, we learn from the mistake and we try to identify what policy can we implement so that it doesn't occur again, rather than standing in judgment and throwing darts at the person that made the mistake. Because if we don't have a continuous improvement mindset as a county government, then how many employees, how many elected officials, how many of us are going to be willing to admit that we don't know what we don't know? Okay, and so we made a mistake. And so on these finance committees, there are going to be times we're going to have to address specific issues that doesn't need to be public to protect the people, if you will, the county employees.
Okay, so I think the discussion about being public is a good one, and I think what we probably can move forward on is using discretion and see if it's abused. We'll have to revisit the public part of it.
I mean, I think the issues you're talking about have come up since the beginning of the council's existence, right? Sensitive issues with any staff member, council member, commissioner, whoever, that you don't bring up in a public meeting, partially out of just being professional about it, but also because it's just not the kind of thing that you would bring up in a public meeting. So I don't think that's something that's not able to be navigated, and it's been navigated since we got here and since the beginning of time. I did hear Susan say that the open door law counselor thinks these are supposed to be public meetings, and there is, I just pay close attention to that. It's really hard for me to ignore that. And just, let me just, and so I'm very sensitive to that. And because we're talking about tax dollars, I'm especially sensitive about it, right? And so, and Susan's also said, I love that saying, and I can never remember it. Transparency is the best sanitizer of, how do you say that, Susan?
Sunshine is a perfect,
Right, and how about it?
So just I got a few thoughts here. I'm just kind of trying to give my perspective on it. I mean, I think, and I hear what you're saying, Jim, and I'm wondering if, two things. One, how do you, I guess those kinds of issues would be just conveyed not to the full council, but to the council president. It's a sensitive issue. You don't bring it before the full council. You bring that to the council president's attention, and you guys meet with whoever it is. So I don't think you'd have to update the whole council on it, but I do think that, the council, to Susan's, I don't know if this was her point or not, but there's an incredible amount of learning that we are going to be paying our financial experts thousands of dollars to learn us on in those meetings. This is our financial expert. We need to learn from them in those meetings as a council so that we don't have a 2-year learning curve and we're halfway through our council appointment before we can even function. We've got to learn. We're paying thousands of taxpayer dollars to these fiscal experts to teach us our current situation. We should have a better understanding of our fiscal situation, and preventing the majority of the council from attending those expert meetings is not going to help.
No, he's going to have a work session. Yeah. We're going to do it all for the council.
Well, I know you're going to do a work session.
We have the finance committee to where you got the 5 of us set together and, getting in the weeds and talking about specific issues. So we're having those free-flowing conversations. And then from there, it's like what we did is we all agreed for Jerry to come in at our first work session, the full body public work session, okay, to come before that 9 to 12 public, to where he's gonna come in and speak to these funds. So I think what happens is that out of the finance committees, we will probably wind up talking about what we need to, because we've got to, look at the big picture first. Then from there, we can drill down into the weeds. And then from there, whatever's discussed, we've got to take that forward to these regular, or these the special sessions, I think. Isn't that what you call them, Susan, special sessions? Yeah, special, our Thursday, first Thursday of the meeting, 9 to 12, okay. So what we talk about, we have to discuss, and then out of that, that moves to our first Thursday work session, special sessions, those 3 hours. Then out of that, because we can't vote at those meetings are public, and then from there, what we have to do, then we as a council body will discuss it, and then from there, then it goes to our regular meeting and is placed on the agenda to where we can make a motion and vote.
I like that, I like that.
So it's kind of a 3-step process.
Can you put that in writing?
Yeah, I can put it in writing. I'm not gonna do it tomorrow because I'm busy, but.
Here's the other thing I would ask.
So is this methodology that you're stating?
I'm gonna pass out,
Is that
guys,
based
because I
on
haven't
your
had anything to
reprisal
eat.
from the public? Is that what you're saying?
Serious.
You fear reprisal from the public, so that's the methodology that you're trying to get across.
No, what all I'm advocating is you, first of all, we're not breaking any rules because you don't have a quorum. Number one, we've only got 3 council members, we don't have 4.
That's the whole purpose of a committee.
Right.
Well.
And then you got 1 commissioner, so there's no issues there. So it's only 3 councils, 1 commissioner, and it's a 5-member board where we can have free-flowing discussions back and forth and literally have unfettered ability to discuss any issue that you may want to discuss, right?
Well, not him,
Okay.
because he can't attend.
Well, this is going pretty late. Can we agree to just take this approach and see how?
Yeah, let me write it up.
You write it
I'll
up.
write up the approach.
Take a step in that
Okay.
direction, we'll work.
And the only thing I want to know is, do you want me as the chair over the finance committee to where we have 1 person communicating with Reedy, and then I communicate with the finance, and then I communicate with the full body council, or does the president want to be the chair of the finance committee and you handle it? We don't need 2 people or 3 people, darting off, trying to stay organized.
Here's what I would suggest is, if you talk to the financial advisor and we're racking up expenses and expertise, I think you should have another council person with you, whoever that is, probably somebody from the finance committee, probably Gary. But just, what we don't want to do is have only 1 person hearing all of the information and then translating it through that unilateral filter. And so it's, especially if we're racking up dollars here, have more than 1 person on the call if you're going to make those calls and spend time.
I don't think
I'm not really talking about that. I'm just talking about, making sure the meetings are scheduled, what we're
Well,
gonna
yeah.
need.
Let me ask you this,
Kind of
is the next meeting
the
public?
agenda.
Is the next meeting public or not?
The finance committee?
Yeah.
No,
And why not?
because there's no reason for it.
Is there a reason to not to have it be private? What's the reason?
Primarily what Darren said is if you make it a public meeting and people get off on some tangent that's not even valid, you have done due diligence to say, these are the issues on the table. And they go off somewhere else and we're wasting a bunch of time and energy and misinformation. So it's like we're serving, we are hired with a degree of discretion. For instance, like human resources, we cannot say what's going on there. They have to trust us. And it's like we are hired with a degree of discretion to say, you guys get it together, present it to us in a nutshell, a good form, and educate us as to what the issues are. I think that's inherent to our positions.
Yeah, and Scott, I could turn this around and turn it right back on you.
Yeah, please do.
Well, I don't want you to have any more private meetings with Dave Hall or anybody in Indianapolis. They all need to be public so that we know exactly what you're saying, what you're doing, and everything else.
So it's not a committee?
Well, no, the council is voted to allow you to be the council's legislative rep.
Right.
Okay, well, but we're not gonna allow you to have any sort of private meetings anymore. You've gotta have, they need to be public,
So you
okay?
want to form a legislative committee?
Well, you're gonna have to, because we wanna keep them all private, or keep them public, okay?
Well, that's the council.
Because we don't trust you. We don't trust that you may do things that we may not approve of.
That's the council's choice. If they want to create a
Right,
legislative.
so you either trust, if you don't trust me, then I would be man enough to tell me that you don't trust me. And if you have a low level of trust for me, then I need you to tell me that, okay?
So
Because this is coming in down to a trust issue.
Well, I mean, you're asking.
I want to ask Susan a question. What does the law say about a committee meeting? Open to the public, not open to the public?
I do not have it memorized. I don't know. I'd have to try to pull it up. I know what Luke Britt's opinion is.
Well, let's hear what Luke Britt's opinion is, because I have always found him to be right on the ball.
Yeah, well, let me say this, Judy, how many council members have actually downloaded, I think it's a 109-page, what's the name of the compliance manual, open door policy manual?
Let me tell you something.
It's 109 pages.
Hey, I had to follow it for 27 years. And I do believe in following the rules and the regulations. And I'm asking the attorney a question, not you, Jim, the attorney. And whatever Luke Britt says and what the attorney says, I believe is what we should follow.
So Luke Britt's opinion is that committee meetings are open meetings.
That's an opinion.
His opinion.
That's right.
Is it
That's
opinion or
just an
statute?
opinion.
That's
It's
the
not
next question.
It's an opinion.
Correct.
Well, it's a legal opinion.
Well,
Well, either is or there isn't, like being pregnant, you are, you aren't.
If I'm a cop, I'm gonna tell
Absolutely.
5 mile an hour below.
That's not relevant to
Okay,
this conversation.
if I'm a doctor, I'm gonna tell you, don't eat hot dogs, don't eat processed foods, and you need to lose your 80 pounds.
Well, if I'm
Okay.
going to be involved in something, then I'm going to be involved and it's going to be above the law, not below the law.
then read the manual.
I have
Read
read
the
the manual.
109-page manual, and until you start quoting the regulatory framework, quote unquote, let's read, okay, let's read the manual, read the regulations, and then I'm with you on following the regulations, okay?
I believe
But
I'm
I-
probably the one that pointed you toward that manual several years ago.
Okay, well, maybe I'm the only one that actually downloaded it.
Okay. I'm done. I'm ready to go. All right.
I'm done.
What we'll do is we'll research this. We'll revisit it next meeting, but shortly, not long.
If you guys are gonna do the public thing on the finance committee, I'm done, and I don't wanna be on the finance committee. I'm not gonna do that. So
Well, we're not gonna take ultimatums. Let's look into
No,
it.
it's not an ultimatum. That's called boundary, and I don't want any part of it, all right? So do whatever you wanna do. I'm done. This is stupid.
All right, we're gonna revisit this next time.
Stupid.
All right,
So we have.
we'll research it. That's it.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. We are not going anywhere else except home.
Joel?
Someone over there wanna?
Adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm moving to adjourn.
All in favor? Adjourn.
You gotta give me a winter chicken dinner. That's anything that's going on.
What is going on?
I know.
Just exacerbates the
Well, at least we can, you know.
Did you shut this down?
You are pretty close.
Last time I ate this, today was at
All I know is there's an enormous amount of device. There's an enormous amount of device.